That's the way it is. America's coming back. We're going to take control of our country and our government. And unfortunately, the only option at this point in time isn't citizens with pitchforks. It will be the military option after lawful civilian authority is put into power as the American people voted for. And then that lawful civilian authority will administer the direction that the country goes through the military regaining control of these locations and facilities so that we can get our country back for American citizens' benefit, not for a bunch of globalist, pedophile thugs and Satan-worshiping thieves the way that they want it to be. With the things that are going to happen here shortly, the mainstream media, as it currently exists, is trying to program people's minds to think that what will happen, what must happen, is somehow the makings of a civil war, that it's somehow illegal or unjust. It's the exact opposite. It's not illegal or unjust. It is the lawful exercise of the people's will by the military, protecting the people's will in the Constitution. And to the extent that they would twist that, they become irrelevant themselves. They've picked a side, and it's against the American people. The new media that you represent, properly explaining this, properly putting it in perspective for people, you're valid because you represent reality, and you represent the will of the American people, and you represent the right of the American people to have that conversation and make it happen. The fact that we're going to come after these monsters and displace them out of office and take control of the country may not be pleasant and easy, but it's what has to be done. And in working that through, it's not a civil war, it's a revolutionary war. The attack came from foreign shores. America had a revolution against the bloodlines, the king, the Brits. And that's why the Constitution was written, this alliance, this coming together of the states against what had become a foreign enemy. Washington, D.C., in the way that it's administering against the American people, doing the bidding of foreign masters, promoting this false Russian collusion thing, and protecting a fake vote, a false vote, a digital Pearl Harbor against America, has become the enemy of the American people in the way it administers. And so we're in the middle of a revolutionary war against foreign entities taking over power and control in our country. That's America coming together against a foreign enemy. If you hear people saying that we're having a civil war, that we're destroying things internally, that, you know, we're supposedly going with pitchforks to do whatever, no, we're not. This isn't a civil war. And we're not going to burn down our own house to save it. We're going to catch those monsters by the tail, and we're going to throw them and get them. We're going to retake lawful authority of government operations in America, and we're going to do it through a legal, proper means, which is get the executive that we voted for.
We're going to take back the White House, and sooner than you think. It's going to be really something special.
Back into office. And then that executive that we voted for is going to make the correct decisions to safely bring America back together again and take it away from those who are illegal, who are unlawful, who are not the ones we voted for. And we're not going to burn our own house down. We're not going to tear it apart. Even if we have agent provocateurs that are put into our midst trying to pull it off, we, the American people, will pull them down off the buildings. We'll stop them clubbing the windows out. If they open up the doors to try and invite us to do wrong, we're not going to do it in mass. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people were there present at Congress on January 6th and never entered the building unlawfully. A handful that might have to look around with some agent provocateurs that did some mischief. Well, that's a little different story, but we're not going to fall for that. And we see how we're being baited to fall for that. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to support our military, the people that are our fellow citizens in these lawful positions, to go do what they have to do under the lawful authorities' direction as we take our country back. And that's not a civil war. That's a revolutionary war against foreign enemies operating on U.S. soil with treasonous, seditious, traitorous cooperation by some Americans who themselves have shown that they don't deserve the title American.
We are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
100, Trump nothing. Batch 3, Biden 100, Trump nothing. Batch 4, Biden 99, Trump 0. These are statistical impossibilities. Everyone would know that. Another group of batches, Biden 100, Trump 0. Biden 100, Trump 0. Biden 150, Trump 0. Biden 200, Trump 0.
It was all bullshit.
Welcome, everyone, to the Cranker's Pit. Tonight, we are awaiting Juan O'Savin. I just corresponded with him about an hour and 20 minutes ago, and he'll be here. He's been traveling. He just left from Washington, the city of Washington, formerly Washington, D.C., and he is now in Hawaii. So we will await his arrival. He knows we're here waiting for him. I want to introduce our panel. We have Mike Likens, as usual, and Anna Marins from Brazil, and Dylan Monroe, and then Mr. Cool, and that's Rob Cunningham. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight, and I know that Juan's got a lot of things going on, so we're very, very humble to have him this evening, and when he comes on, we'll give him the floor. But I want to talk about this video that we did for the intro. I know that many of us that have been part of this movement, we've been waiting for this time that is coming, and it seems to be coming right now. The real story about the shots, and the election fraud and what COVID well stood for, and many people thought that we were crazy. And I know that through my research, there's 81% of Americans took the first shot. So they fooled 81% of the people. But I just want to go around until Juan comes in. And Mike, why don't you start it off and talk about the Central and the election fraud and what they did.
Well, I mean, in preparation for, Juan coming on, I just kept researching and because he's probably one of the first, I'd say, conspiracy theorists that I followed, when I first got awakened. He was my evangelist, if you want to call it that. And so I really believed everything that he said, and then the pace got faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and we're today. So now Juan's like, "Hey, what'd Juan say?" Okay, he said, "We are moving so fast, and we've moved so fast. I'd like to take a snippet of what Juan said, kind of like in the video that we said, or that we had in the intro. Let's just take 15 minutes of what Juan said. Let's go back 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I follow him on a lot of channels, but I follow his message because it's pretty consistent on all channels. And I say that not to promote any channels at all, but I don't want to do that. But I think the importance of that is that there's I'm an analogy person, and I liken it to, I grew up on a farm, and my dad would always, when we were eating, if we were eating fried chicken, my dad would basically eat his whole meal off the bones that we had as kids. And so I think that's the same analogy that I would give to what we're going through. And you can apply that to everything from our, like with Rob, with finances to there's so much meat left on the bone that we have to go back and we have to just kind of look at the inauguration speech of 2017. That's one example. And you can example every single thing. Juan mentions so many things, and all the things that he said post, you can say 2015, 2016, 2017, all the way through, but gives us that substance that we can then look at and say, we don't have to look at where we're at. We can go back 2 years or whatever. There's so much meat left on these bones. And when we look at all the things that have happened, if you mentioned Patrick Byrne, all the things that he discovered when he went through his ordeal back before Trump's first inauguration, and Obama and that whole scenario, and Juan can speak through that, but there's so much meat left on the bones, I guess, is my best analogy to start with. And I want to kind of flavor that in any conversation spur of that, because I think there's so much that we all can talk about in that we still have to go back to the heart of that, and still there's so much meat left that we can talk about and really dissect that we forgot, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or whatever.
Thanks, Mike. Dylan, why don't you give us your perspective, please?
Well, I'm really looking forward to Juan coming on, if he does come on. But I want to address maybe briefly before he comes on, so we had some haters in the comments on our previous video that Juan was supposed to come on, and he's a controversial figure. He does, go on long tangents and sometimes doesn't directly answer questions. But I just want to remind everyone that this guy is definitely tied in with the White House, definitely tied in with Trump. I told the haters in the comments, I said, why don't you go tell him to his face at Mar-a-Lago that he's a shill? Because you probably can't even get in Mar-a-Lago, but there he is all the time there. And that's actually when, I always found his messages interesting, but it wasn't until a Nino Rodriguez video that Juan was actually at Mar-a-Lago that I was like, oh my God, this guy really is tied in. And it's even been reported in the mainstream media that he's helping significantly, or was helping significantly, with Secretary of State elections in the different states to correct this election system in the United States. And one of the things that I want to ask him about, which I'm not sure if he'll answer, but is, what he does going to all these different countries. He clearly has some kind of a very important diplomatic role on the international stage. He's always traveling to different countries all over the world. And I believe he's somewhat involved in the election systems there, but that's sort of an assumption. I don't think he's ever completely revealed exactly what he's doing in all these different travels. But this is someone who's definitely to be respected. And when I did meet him in person at Reckoning Fest outside of Dallas in Mesquite, Texas, I forget the exact year, maybe 2021. He's just so generous with his time, talking to every person in line for so long. He almost had an ascended master vibe, like a Jesus vibe, because he was doing prayers for people, doing healings on people, giving people advice on where to get healing for illnesses, and just had this whole line of people that were just all wanting to talk to him. And it was a little bit of like celebrity fanfare, but at the same time, like we know that this is someone who is significant. In his past, he's played a role in even bringing down the USSR through their currency devaluation. That was, a scheme from the US that helped bring down that adversary. And so I just think that everyone should be showing him respect, and understand that, we are still in a continuity of government operation that's compartmentalized, that he can't always give the answers that we want, but he has given us so much, like Mike was saying. If you go back and if you've really been listening to him for like 8 years, like I have, he told us so many times in advance that Trump was going to be arrested. He did not tell us in advance that Trump was going to be assassinated or attempted assassination, but so many other things that he's just been told us about months or years in advance, that it's so far in advance that people get impatient and they forget how much of a prediction, or not even a prediction, but like a forewarning he had given us. And so I think even still, we need to take everything he says very seriously. And even just this week, on Nino, there was a big teaser video that I'm sure people in the comments again were a little bit disappointed about, a big teaser that there would be big announcements this week concerning the 2020 election. And we've already had other big announcements this week concerning Trump's position on vaccines, and we're expecting some more public disclosure on some medical issues this week as well. So we've got a lot happening, and it's pretty much all positive from my perspective. So can't wait for him to come on.
Thanks, Dylan. Anna, you want to jump in and talk about the intro and your experiences with Juan?
Oh, thank you, Qranker. Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone who is listening to us. Thank you for being here with us, listening to the voice. That's how I refer to Juan. I believe he's the voice of this movement. There's no one that goes uh, goes so deep, and in the same time, he can be so connected to you, make you feel important every time he talks to you, or even through a video. He always tries to bring us to the same ground, to the, like, as he told me once, like, we have to move, we are moving forward, but shoulder to shoulder. No one is going in front of you. And for me, he's the voice. I have for many years his book, and I think it's, as Qranker already mentioned, we mentioned this, and it's a coffee table book that everyone should have, because history in 200 years, this will be something that our generations, the upcoming generations, will see the vision of this man. Yes, and I have mine with Melanita here on the cover, and I respect him. Nowadays, I haven't been listening to him as much as I wanted, because I have you guys, and you guys are outstanding in information, and I have a different pace in my life. But he's definitely someone that touches my heart, especially when with his movie, the Called, and I think it's another way that he always bring people close to him and close to his message, uh, because we were all called, but not everyone answered. And through the musics and through the scenes of this video, of this documentary he made with Jennifer, and I think it's I mentioned to him, he carries my heart, I carry his heart, and I think we all carry each other's heart. It's a poem by 𝕯𝖚𝖘 𝖁𝖚𝑑, an American writer, and we should, to be in this movement, we are all over the world, and to be connected the way we are, it's because we all have each other's heart. And this is by God's grace. That's for his grace touching us and calling for us. And we were calling for him, and that's the time. It's time. I'm very blessed to be here talking with him and with you guys.
Thanks, Anna. I just got a text from Juan. He says his cell phone coverage is really bad. He'll have better coverage in about 15, 20 minutes, and he'll join us. So just know he's traveling right now and his cell phone service is not good. Rob, can you shine a little light on what we just watched as our intro, and and how this all ties together, we got some time to have a conversation before Juan joins us.
Yeah, thank you, Qranker, and hello to everyone. Thank you for being here, and my family as well. It's the interesting stat, Qranker, that you shared, 81% took the first shot, and I'm sure a lot of people regret that percentage. And as time went on and our voices were heard, I don't know if are we at a 50-50 now? Are we at 60-40? Where we are as a nation when it comes to even allowing ourselves to realize that maybe we were had. I mean, there's so much evidence, and it's been 5 years. How many of those 81% are still holding tight to their ideology, and how many have come in our direction? I don't know what that number is. I've got a feeling it's got to be a number of people that have, unfortunately, and as hard as it was, accepted the truth that they were lied to and they were deceived. So I guess what I'd love to see out of tonight, given the video and the context and the complexity of everything that we're talking about, is how do we tabletop all of these issues for the average person to understand and make common sense out of the madness? Okay. What does it mean? What do you mean we're at war? What do you mean it always had to be the military? What do you mean Trump's been commander in chief for 8.5 years? What do you mean it's legal for him to thwart a foreign invasion in our cities with foreign cartels that are selling drugs and killing people? How does that work? I was told X, but now I'm being told Y. Who do I believe? And why hasn't CNN reported it? I mean, we've got our work is cut out for us to be able to have a normal, level-headed, reasoned conversation with people that haven't maybe spent 2 hours trying to figure this out. So that's what I want to do. I want to equip people with a working man's knowledge and common sense understanding of why it had to be this way, how we started the nation, how it got hijacked, how deeply close we came to losing everything, and what our road to recovery is to get us back to a organic constitutional republic. And there was only one way to make that happen. And the average person that socially illiterate, culturally illiterate, historically illiterate, politically illiterate, financially illiterate, they've not really spent a whole lot of time understanding systems and structures and laws and principles. So if they didn't know we were hijacked as a corporate entity by, nefarious bankers and godless freaks, then they didn't know we needed to be rescued. So all of a sudden they're waking up in the middle of a rescue operation and going, why are you upsetting my comfort bubble? I thought everything was just fine. And when we have to start with someone at that level of limited awareness, we've got our work cut out for us.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, many of us, and we're still figuring more and more things out, the layers of evil that have been perpetrated on humanity, not only in America, but all over the world. And we see that today France's government collapsed. And so that's a big, big deal, because you're going to start seeing some of these other countries, their governments are going to collapse too.
Well, and Qranker, to that point, didn't we see earlier like 7 or 8 politicians for the Conservative Party in Germany all get killed in one day, die in one day? That doesn't happen. Those are calculated assassinations so the old cartel can try to keep its power structure.
This is what they've done for many, many years. And when people learn that there's no government, it's actually a cartel. This is why, as your video that you put together, which was so brilliant, when Melania and Trump came down those stairs, the escalator stairs, if people remember, in 2015, right before the election of 2016, the news media would wait for every tweet that Donald Trump would put out. They would stop everything they're doing to read Donald Trump's tweet until he won the election. Then when he won the election, the tables flipped. And now they don't put any of his tweets out. And now we know that Twitter is now X, and X, I mean, if you're not on X right now, all the generals are on X, all the information's on X. There's a reason why Elon Musk bought X, and that is there's no censorship, and there's so much coming out on X. And I know that General Flynn is just dropping bomb after bomb after bomb, and he's starting to talk about the children. And that's never been talked about before by the generals. And the amount of child trafficking and even the more horrific parts of children that I don't want to get into, when this all becomes public, it ain't going to matter if you're Republican, Democrat, or independent. This is good versus evil. And this war that we're in, that Juan will talk about and he's talked about many, many times, is Washington, D.C. is nothing more than a swamp of evil. And when people find out what's been going on in Washington, D.C. and other parts of the world, you're going to want to stick your head in the toilet and throw up. And that's the truth. So I wanted to bring that up because today there's so many things that have come out, and I've been busy doing some other things, and I was just doing some research here the last hour, and I did some research this morning. And General McInerney, he's putting a bunch of information out. The financial world is totally flipping right now. I mean, taking all the corruption out of the Federal Reserve to the IMF to the IRS to all the central banks, it's all being flipped. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit because the financial market is really changing quickly. And Rob, why don't we start with you on that until Juan gets here? We'll have that conversation.
Well, yeah, sure. You know, the simple philosophy is he who has the gold makes the rules. You know, and President Trump has said that himself. He said it to the Pope, right? He said it to the church. The most powerful country in the world from a monetary standpoint has been America since the world reserve currency status in Bretton Woods in 1944. And the problem with that is we were designated the world's reserve currency, but it was counterfeit money. It wasn't sound money. It was a fiat cartel debt instrument that the world collectively called money, and everyone had to use it. And attached to the debt were strings and regulations and affiliations and implied contracts and the U.S. military supremacy and NATO and the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization and the International Monetary Fund and every damn thing in the world that the issuers of this debt note could entangle all the leaders and all the nations of the world with. So there was a deception embedded into this counterfeit cartel money, and it was the necessary requirement for a one world government. It was the mechanism with which they stitched us all together. They have these people think in 25 and 50 and 100-year time frames. They're in no hurry. They are demonic, they're patient, they're maniacally brilliant, but they're also godless. And they have to do their work in dark and secrecy and in deception. And what does evil do? Evil comes to divide, devour, deceive, and destroy. And those that own the monetary system that have that sort of ethos don't have our best interest in mind. And so what are we seeing today? We're seeing a return to honesty, sound money, one-to-one collateral behind every dollar, digital dollar issued. If we're going to have 200 countries using sound money, then all 200 countries have to operate from the same definition of stablecoin. And a stablecoin means a national government issues a US dollar like an RLUSD, or the European Union wants to issue an RLEUD, or Japan wants to issue an RL yen. There has to be one-to-one collateral behind each one of those dollars put into circulation, each one of the yen put into circulation. So when we go to commerce and trade, I'm not playing with funny money while you're playing with gold-backed currency. We all have to be swapping the same sort of currencies back and forth with each other. Otherwise, it's a rigged system. The playing field's not level. So first things first, we've got to reevaluate what is gold and silver really worth. Why is gold on the balance sheet of America's Treasury at $40 an ounce when it's trading at $3,400 or $3,500 today? You know, why is silver at $41 an ounce and you can buy 90 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold? That's a ridiculous perversion. So how do we level the playing field? That's what we're watching in the markets right now. We've got to basically go back to sound money. We've got to reevaluate the currencies. We have to then, reevaluate the metals. And then once those are done, currencies have to get reevaluated. And then when we go to an open, transparent ledgering system, a digital architecture that's built on trustlessness, where all nations can operate on a level playing field, where everyone can see every transaction, every settlement. I mean, boom, they can look at the books. There's no trust me, bro. You know, the check's in the mail, my money's good. I'm not paying you with counterfeit script. When there's perfect transparency, then no two nations have to trust one another. You're placing your trust in math, which is a science, which is an inspectable truth. Not I promise to pay you next Tuesday. I won't, steal or deflate, or I won't go bankrupt. There's no counterparty risk in math, right? There is in whether America pays its debt off, or whether, Thailand goes bankrupt, or China, implodes because of, its real estate market implodes. So what we're doing is we're extracting the poison of this world reserve currency and this fiat Rothschild system that's been superimposed over the world, and we're taking it out of the system. And sometimes detox is painful, and it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of contracts and a lot of renegotiations under the cover of tariffs. It takes a lot of people. You get 200 countries or 209 or 195, however you want to count it. They all want to make their country great again. Making America great again doesn't mean screw everybody else. It just means our leaders ought to make decisions based on what's in the best interest of the citizens of America. We want to make Brazil great again. We want to make Japan great again. We want to make Italy great again. Making your country great is like wanting your football team to win. You don't have to hate every other team. You just want to win the game, be the best you that you can be. So with this monetary system where you take cheating and perversion and distortion and debasement and theft and graft and all the corruption of this cartel's money system, you get rid of all of that. Now you have 200 nations around the world that can focus on making their country great again instead of who's screwing who. That's why we have to level the playing field, so we can operate palms up, total trust, total confidence, and then may the best team, best country, best nation win. So that's why we're at the very final stages of the old system dying and the new system being stood up. And I would say that before Christmas of this year, before the end of this year, if you go back to the Q drops talking about what a great Christmas it's going to be, I'm pretty sure they're talking about this Christmas. If I was a betting man.
I welcome that with open arms. And we talked about the last show we did with the Federal Reserve. And Dylan, you brought up the Federal Reserve, all the images and how that's all under construction. And we came to the conclusion, and Rob, I think you brought it to light, that that is now going to be the world headquarters for crypto.
It would make perfect sense that that is exactly what's taking place. That is going to be a new headquarters with military encryption and, you know, deep bunkers and concrete, you know, skiffs and all the things that are necessary that you would want to protect a top secret. Look, if you don't have an economic system and a monetary system, then you can't have national defense. So we have to have, you know, a significant system of significant financial importance. It's called a SIFI. And that's what our monetary system is going to be. And there's going to be a new agency that's being developed that, if you don't know, we've traditionally had the SEC and the CFTC. There's going to be a new digital asset group commission that's going to be a third that is going to look at the DLTs and the stable coins and NFTs and custody and everything having to do with the new digital architecture. And that will be their primary focus of concern. Things that are not securities but are tokens. Who regulates those? Right now, there's been a turf war between an old SEC and an old CFTC, but neither one of them have been designed and envisioned for the purposes of a distributed ledger technology blockchain architecture. So this new third agency is going to emerge and take responsibility for regulation over the new digital ecosystem. And that's on the horizon.
Thanks, Rob. Dylan, you want to add anything?
I'll let Anna go, has her hand up right now. So,
Well, I just want to make a quick example of because lots of people say, "Oh, what is the proof? What do you have to show me the changing that it's coming and everything?" And it's boring and it's tiring to explain people because they are not paying attention. And today, while I was cooking, I was talking to my sister, very like random conversation, and we talked. I came from the financial market, and then I jumped into the jewelry industry, which is completely run by the fiat system, you know, the head people of this system that we are all talking about now, the fiat system. And it might sound naive and it might sound girlish, but girls, pay attention. We are the main force in the house, and you guys know that. And we noticed that in the last 10 years here in Brazil, the major jewelry companies, they all started to bring pieces of silver to their collections. We immediately, as customers or as interested on beauty and accessories, we were, oh my God, so the system, the corruption is so good, so great, and it's affecting everyone. So they are trying to bring a new product, less expensive, not as expensive as gold. But no, today we had this woo moment, like we saw, my God, we saw they were already introducing to us in a in a in a in a in a way that maybe the women of the house, the girls in the house that follows, because here in Brazil it's not very common to have silver, to have you buy gold in jewelries and gems and precious gems here from Brazil, but not silver. silver is antique. It's something that you inherit. You don't care. But now every major jewelry retailer have a line of silver, and that brings it's a slap in the face. You guys, pay attention. We are heading this way. Okay, it's gold, but it's also silver. Am I saying something that makes? I believe it makes all sense,
Oh yeah. No,
right?
it makes perfect sense.
Because
Yeah,
the women will have this light. No, we should pay attention. Maybe there's something here. That's the proof. That's the proof. And of course, by upgrading in the knowledge that you guys bring to us and Juan brings to us, and now Rob and Qranker and everyone is talking about the digital assets. Guys, they were playing with us. These fiat people, they knew what was coming. They knew. And they were already setting the lines for silver. And they're profiting out of that. So, is there any other proof? I had it cooking my stroganoff, my beef stroganoff this morning. And I said, yeah, this is godly. This is totally godly. This is the plan.
thanks, Anna. That was good stuff. Dylan?
I would like to share one thing in this video, possibly before Juan comes on. It's on a slightly different subject than the finance, but it has to do with the medical, which was, I would like to share the little video that Trump posted on Truth Social that is really making the rounds on X, and it's bringing to light Trump's true position, I think, on the vaccine subject. And now we are streaming on YouTube, so I'm not sure if we need to be careful anymore or not. I know we can't talk about MMS. We won't say the full word for it. But let's play this short little clip, and maybe we can have a little conversation about it after. There's only 2 minutes long. So here.
Show them the thimerosal bomb, which we keep in a metal container because we're a little afraid of it, and it's a very fine powder.
This is thimerosal, which is labeled very toxic, has cumulative effects, can cause damage to the kidneys, to the respiratory system, skin, to the nervous system. It specifically warns on here that it can cause reproductive and developmental toxicity, meaning that it can cause things like autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. This is immensely toxic stuff.
And it's in vaccine.
And this is what's in the vaccine. It's important to realize we're talking about a whole range of products. Vaccines are a big one because, of course, you're directly injecting it. For example, this is tetanus vaccine. This one expires, it's a little outdated now, in 2007. And here's the thimerosal. 1 to 10,000 is a preservative. Perhaps the biggest one in the U.S., at least, that's for exposure to mercury is the influenza vaccine. Influenza vaccine is now recommended for all pregnant women, all infants, all children on a yearly basis. You're supposed
You
to
have last year's influenza one? Understand that thimerosal is not added at the end. It's not like, well, that factory next year can make thimerosal free. Thimerosal, you either have to have a thimerosal free factory or you have to not have one. They add thimerosal at each step because the factory is not clean and not sterile. So you either have to have an expensive sterile factory where you don't need thimerosal, or you have to have one that produces thimerosal. It's going to need thimerosal or something the whole time. It needs to be stopped.
This is the influenza vaccine from Adventist Pasteur, their flu zone. Thimerosal, 25 micrograms of mercury per dose.
I'd like to point out that a lot of people didn't know, and I'm one of them. I've given 2,000 RhoGAM shots. I've been in vaccines for 35 years. I didn't know that RhoGAM had thimerosal in it. So I think a lot of the doctors were unaware. They were unaware that even the word thimerosal meant mercury.
So yeah, that I just want to amplify that because the fact that Trump shared that on Truth Social, For all the Trump haters who are, talking about Operation Warp Speed and that he's responsible for that, that he's the father of the vaccine and everything, it's like Trump's really putting out mixed messages on this. A lot of us remember a tweet from his all the way back from I think 2014 or maybe even 2012, where he talked about the connection between autism and we're on YouTube, so I'm trying to be careful, but the V. But to put out this post now in September, when we're waiting for RFK to come out with his big announcement about what all the research has shown to be the cause of this autism epidemic, is I think a major preview of what RFK might discover. Now I think he might have already put out something connecting Tylenol during pregnancy to autism. But for Trump to be putting this out is definitely, his true feelings, whatever he actually truly feels about Operation Warp Speed, although I think his statements have been misinterpreted by some. To put this out at the same time is pretty suggestive, I think, of his true position on this subject, which is really the challenge with Trump and, decoding his tweets, is deciphering his public position versus his true position. And I think this was a little bit of a hint of what his true position is on this subject. And so, I'd love to get other people's take on this. And just the fact that this whole video was framed with like, they're all poison on the top and bottom, like he literally posted it like that. I doubt he edited it like that, but if the fact he posted it like that is just, it's going to be devastating, I think, to the big pharma. So I'm loving the show at this point.
Well,
So Dylan,
go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to share something real quick. I saw this. I don't even know what channel it was. If you allow me to, I'm just going to share a picture real quick that just, I don't have to say it once you guys see it. Let me see here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That is the number of vaccines by generation. This is a whole family. And look at the little girl. 80 plus. These are the 3, 7, 15, 80 plus. That right there should be a campaign when you look at that. And it's everything you just said.
They've been poisoning us our whole life. And they didn't want us. I mean, to the cabal, we're nothing more than cattle to them. So they just want us to be their slaves, make them more money, and then they want us dying off before we're 65, 70 years of age. We got all these different diseases, and they're all man-made. And they tell us always, they tell us, oh, you got to be safe. And I know I've said this before, but the cabal always puts the litmus test out there. And I knew when the media started telling everyone about COVID, what was the number one thing that they knew that the people were going to listen about the shots? They told everyone that we were going to run out of toilet paper. And everyone went to the store and bought carts and carts and carts of toilet paper. And that's when they knew that the people were going to listen. And this is how they manipulated the whole election, which we'll get into with Juan. We had so many dead people that voted in the elections, and the post office is totally responsible for a lot of this. And you're going to find out that the post office is not our friend. And that's going to be shocking to a lot of people. But if you knew about the Georgia Guidestones and you knew about the Agenda 2021, the Agenda 25, and the Agenda 2030, they wanted to eliminate 90% of all of us. And that's the truth. And I know people don't want to hear that, but that is the truth. And they wanted to do it through the election fraud. They wanted their people in there all the time so they can keep buffaloing the people through the media, the Mockingbird media, and they can keep those lying professors and all the universities and all the teachers and all our grade schools and high schools and teaching people nothing but propaganda. And this is hard for a lot of people to understand, but 90% of what we have in our life right now, it's all bullshit. Just like Trump said at the very beginning of this show. And this is called the Great Awakening. And the Great Awakening has got so many layers to it. It's beyond comprehension. And I know that Anna and I did a chat on her channel in Brazil on Sunday, and we talked about today being a 999. And a lot of people don't even know a lot of our spiritual dates. They don't know anything about the blood moon. And, you know, today is a great day for a reset, and it's a reset of your life, letting go of all those things that have happened in your past that we're not proud of, all the traumas that you've ever been through, whether your grandfather, your fathers, or whatever, and letting it go, just letting it all go. God is creating a brand new reset, and it's for we the people. It's all for His children. And this reset is happening, and we're going to eliminate all this evil off this earth, and we're going into the golden ages. So it's real important to understand that this blood moon is a very special time that we're living in right now. So does anyone want to add to that?
And 999 comes to the number of when they seal the silver is 999, pure silver, 999. Triple nines, we have 3 times 9, 27. We have, what is 27?
9.
You're supposed to come up with that, Anna. But that's
I will-
brilliant that you came
I'll
up with
be
the
very
999.
gematria girl here, but yes, gematria goes to 27, comes to JFK.
Wow. Wow.
999. And there's more on this video, Dylan, that you mentioned, and we mentioned in the beginning that Trump and Juan, maybe I don't consider Juan a conspiracy theory person. I think he's very straight to the point, but and it's all a lie. Well, we just feel it in our skin, so we don't need conspiracy theorists to wake us up. At least I don't, and you don't either. And the word that caught my attention during this video from Trump is influenza. And immediately COVID, we connect the dots, like connect the dots, Q. From COVID, you connect the dots until the influenza reset they did early in the beginning of the 20th century. And influenza comes to 108. 108. It comes to 55, loud and clear. Renaissance, 108. 55 again, 108. Fitzgerald, 108. And there's one that I need us to pay attention because Rob mentioned that the other day, the other chat, last chat. 81. 81, if you slash the 0, is the first day of October, the beginning of the fiscal, the new year, the 2026. Correct me if I'm wrong, because please, Rob, because October is not the 10th month, it's the 8th. So Trump is always giving us much more. As Mike said, there's a lot in this bone for us to chew and to eat from and to feed ourselves and understand the plan, that we are the plan. And that's why I want to show everyone that is watching us that Brazil already, and this guy's here. Rob, you were not here when I presented that, but I came up with this drawing. God gave me the inspiration and I provided. If there's any royal house that I am waiting for, is the royal house of we the people. We mentioned that the other day, and now I drink from this cup.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I knew you would like it.
And that
Juan
is,
just texted me and said 5 minutes. So he's getting to a spot where he's got good connection. Go ahead, Rob.
yeah, if you don't mind, Qranker, I want to share one other video that goes along with what Dylan, was talking about here. And this is to put things in context, when we're talking about evil, we're talking about blowing up the, Georgia Guidestones, and it had in 20 languages how they wanted to get the population down to 500 million. And to not understand the level of demonic evil that we're dealing with, people that want to get rid of 1 billion people, there is no red line they won't cross. The end of the day, there's no respect for life. These people are carnivores, they're demonic, they don't have any belief in a God, or they have a zealous hatred towards the Creator. We are cattle or too many ants at their picnic, and they won't think twice about killing us any more than they would stepping on ants. And let me give you just another piece of evidence that shows it goes along with what Dylan just showed. But, I'm going to show you this video in a minute, but when I looked at it and I put 2 and 2 together to understand the kind of war that we're at right now, new evidence of heinous crimes against humanity is being proved by a report that sane people were not supposed to see. What they saw was a report from the Ford Medical Institute on vaccines and the godly, deadly, demonic, destructive impact that these people knew it was having on children. And everything, I want to play the video and then we'll come back and talk about it a little bit. So let me see if I can roll this up here. Here we go.
Impact of childhood vaccination on short and long-term chronic health outcomes in children, a birth cohort study. I've never seen this study before.
18,468 subjects.
Henry Ford, like other institutions, has a bias towards the goodness of vaccines. If the results came back demonstrating that the battery of vaccines was associated with chronic diseases, such a result would be particularly convincing. This could be essentially one of the most valuable studies in the field.
The vaccinated subjects were over 4 times more likely to have an asthma diagnosis.
600% more acute and chronic ear infections.
4.47 times the amount of speech disorders in the vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated.
5.5 times risk. 616% increase. Learning issues, developmental delays, speech delays, language delays.
Amongst the unvaccinated group, there were 0.
There was 0 brain dysfunction, 0 diabetes, 0 behavioral problems, 0 learning disabilities, 0 intellectual disabilities, 0 tics, and 0 other psychological disabilities. None.
It's a big difference.
It's very important this study sees the light of day.
This is devastating.
This paper should have been rushed to publication on an emergency basis.
We are systematically making kids sick, and not just a little bit sick, very sick.
This may be the most important study that has ever been done, and it needs to be published.
He knows if he puts his name on this, his career is over.
I mean, honestly, really emotional.
Zervo's probably going to lose his job over this.
This is an inconvenient study for the entire vaccine agenda.
Now, what kind of people that care nothing about science, only about money, and don't mind destroying the lives of families and children their entire lives, having that kind of information and not giving 2 damns about stopping, sharing the information, saving children, ruining their lives, from a health standpoint, from a scholastic standpoint, from a financial standpoint, the chaos that's brought into these families because these freaks want to sell medicine and pump poisons in the body of innocent children. When you put these things together and this truth comes out, now you start looking at things like Executive Order 13818. You start looking at crimes against humanity. You start looking at things that people, a warring faction that is external to the Constitution of the United States, that are not sovereign citizens, are here hijacking our country, hijacking our Treasury through their fake monetary system that's run by the Federal Reserve, running these pharmakia witch doctors, targeting and killing our kids, having young kids today have to have 80 vaccines instead of 4, all for the love of money? How do you get rid of a demonic evil like that unless you use the military? We're going to put them in timeout? We're going to go through their court system to get rid of their pharmakia specialist? Zero chance in hell we're going to extricate these demonic hijackers that are here to divide, devour, deceive, and destroy each and every one of us just as calmly as they'd chew a piece of bubble gum. They don't give two damns about us. There is no other way to get rid of an enemy that cares not a whit about our lives than through the greatest minds that ever lived that have a God-centered focus in a military operation. You're not going to vote them out. They own the voting system. You're just not going to get rid of this demonic evil unless you have the greatest military capacity on earth. And for the average person that can't understand that, I'm sorry, I can't help you. It's a good versus evil war that we're in, and evil exists in this world at a scale you've never allowed yourself to believe. That's not our problem. That's your problem. The fact that you don't believe it doesn't change the reality that a demonic evil lurks this world to destroy us.
Welcome, Juan O'Savin.
Hey, what's going on out here anyway?
Oh, what a beautiful view.
Yeah, they've been out surfing since 5 this morning.
Wow.
Spectacular day today. It's another beautiful day in paradise.
Good evening, Juan. This is Anna here from Brazil. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm perfect. Now that you joined us, and I have many friends who are already very aware of you, of course, who are. They are, and they love you. I call you the voice. I call you the voice because for me you are, and the voice. And I want to introduce them to you, and it's my pleasure to be talking to you. It's an honor to be talking to you since a long time without speaking to you directly. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and I apologize. We had a time difference or whatever, and I guess we had the clocks changed or whatever. I wasn't paying that close of attention, so I was thinking we were 4 hours off or 5 hours off. We were 4 hours off, so I was late getting here. I apologize on that.
Oh, that's no problem. Thank you. We would wait for you. No problem.
Thank
you. We have here, I don't know, Rob Cunningham, Dylan Monroe, that you already know in person, Mike Lincoln, who is a dear friend, a new acquaintance of mine too, and Mr. Qranker. And please, guys, this is Juan O'Savin, the one and only.
Well, it's very sweet to get to be with a cool panel like you guys. And I saw one of the notes you guys were talking about the Federal Reserve stuff. Let me just lead off real quickly. Over the weekend, President Trump called the Federal Reserve likely a criminal organization. That's a very, very, very strong terminology to apply to a federal agency. But most people aren't aware. They don't understand. No, Federal Reserve is a private banking institution. They are no more federal than Federal Express. They manage the printing and the interest rates for our money supply, and they do it from federal office locations. That's one of the things that Trump has been making clear, that we're not going to pay for that as a people anymore, and he's starting to put the screws to the whole Federal Reserve operation. Last week, even though I've been aware of something for over 10 years now, last week I decided to begin discussing a problem that is very, very, very serious that the Federal Reserve has been involved in. And that is the printing of money, vast, vast, vast quantities of money that have been parked all over the world, pallets of cash. The cash has, for the most part, not been distributed. It's controlled with devices that would melt them down, burn them down, if you tried to open them up without the proper security features being engaged. And so you may remember, for example, there was two $100 million pallets of cash that were discovered by people looting offices in Syria as Syria fell and as Assad was fleeing the country to Russia. And so they tried to open those pallets of cash, and to their dismay, as they begin to take the plastic off of it and pull it apart, they just burned down, melted down right before their eyes. $200 million gone because they didn't have the right procedures to do it. So they stopped and preserved those pallets. The remainder of them, they're looking for a way to cash those in. But let me tell you about a particular couple of incidents, one that many people in this audience may already be aware of. And that was when an aircraft arrived in Tehran, Iran, on the tarmac, and was famously photographed with hundreds of dollars of pallets of cash in the aircraft that were being deposited with the Iranians during the Obama administration, tail end of the Obama administration. It was very upsetting, very disturbing that this money was going to Iran, who at the same time was doing all sorts of terroristic activities against America around the world. In that case, as a few, tens of millions or tens of billions of dollars that went to the administration there. Let me tell you about something else that happened at the same time. See, Federal Reserve has been printing up, authorizing to print up, and did this under the Bush administration, Bush 2, and under the Obama administration. They printed up tens and 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 tens of billions of dollars, paper dollars, Federal Reserve notes is what they're technically called. And then we're distributing them, these pallets of cash, all over planet Earth. Now, they weren't actually getting broken up and handed out generally, but they were being parked in these places. Afghanistan, Ghana, some stuff ended up in several Mideastern countries, Vietnam, Thailand, and places across South America. And there is a very, 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 I will not disclose it today, but a very strong tie to Brazil and what happened here that will shock people. The criminality of FBI officers, DEA officers, Drug Enforcement Agency, and CIA officers in the way that they dealt with Brazilian citizens, the Brazilian banks. Remember, my history is that I was one of the key people at the end. Started out kind of as the riffraff, but ended up in a key position in taking down the Russian ruble, which was the last step in taking down the Soviet Union. And so I have a little bit of understanding of what happens with currencies. And you can't undermine a currency or take it down just in the bank ledgers, in the digital currency transactions inside the banks and the reserve system and things like that, even internationally. The banks would stop it. The stop gaps are easily in place. But when you have cash and it's being traded around at the street level, it's out of control. It's out of control of the government even. A black market can be created, and then the value of that cash can float. And if there's too much of it, it's too available, if there's any issue, you know, even if you associated some kind of a disease with the cash, made it a pariah to handle it, things like that, all of a sudden its value can go down dramatically. When we started sifting Russian rubles back into the Russian economy at the end of Glasnost, at the beginning of the first Bush administration and the tail end of Reagan, the ruble was traded on the black market 40 rubles to $1. By the time we were done, in just a matter of months, it had gone to 200 rubles to $1. And that's when Gorbachev picked up the phone and called President Bush and asked for some assistance. And President Bush said, well, I see the wall's still up. Reagan said, tear down that wall. And so Gorbachev, within 4 hours, called, had the guards removed from the towers, and a short while later, the wall came tumbling down. So with that in mind, it's the same thing today, but it was planned to be reversed against America and against the whole world. Very insidious thing happened during the Obama administration, and prior to that, the Bush administration was involved also. It wasn't just thousands of pallets of U.S. Federal Reserve notes. It was tens of thousands. We estimate about 17,000. Some estimates were as high as 22,000. I think those are wrong because of what exactly was going on. But we also see British pounds, Brazilian currency, Japanese yen, German currency, Deutschmarks, and other currencies that have been palletized and parked all over the world. For what purpose? What end? Because the people receiving it, they can't open those pallets up and suddenly spend it on whatever they want to. It's just sitting there. Why would it be sitting there? The reason is because had Hillary Clinton won, which was the plan in 2016, they were going to begin distributing those currencies out and starting to destabilize all the paper currencies. The dollar, the yen, the Deutschmark, Brazilian bola, everything, the euro, and removing confidence and moving people into cryptos and then their own world currency that they intended to bring online. This was all being pushed by a club of Eurocentric people that had a plan. Now, the problem is that's still out there floating, and it's waiting for just the right signals to be sent to allow those pallets to be opened up all over the place, and then to weaken all of the trade in currencies all over the world. That's part of the fight. You think you know everything that's going on, why Trump's doing this and that, something else. You know, about 2.5 weeks ago, Trump called in several senators that are trusted allies. And they spent all of about a week and a half just on Treasury matters. When people were wondering, where was President Trump? Is he ill? Is there something wrong with him? Whatever. He did a couple private interviews, but in the meantime, he was actually doing private work, working on what's coming with what's happening over at Treasury. And I mentioned previously in the weeks past that after the events in June, where we had the huge Army's anniversary celebration, and then the two flags put up on the White House front lawn, President Trump put security fencing around the White House and then simultaneously around the U.S. Treasury. But no other building in Washington, D.C. Why? Because it was symbolic. He is going to protect the Treasury dollar. He is not going to protect the Federal Reserve dollar. And the Treasury dollar, the constitutional dollar, is gold and silver coin, minted by the U.S. Treasury, not the Federal Reserve. Fights on. This is a very big deal, and people need to be aware of and paying attention to what I'm saying. This is a very, very serious situation across the world. You could have a nuclear bomb go off. It would be less endangering, probably less deadly than an attack in the currency market. So, and I'm saying that because in the case of South America and specifically Brazil, you're in a very precarious situation. Look what's going on next door right now, and has been now for the last couple of weeks. Ecuador. Anybody doubt that Ecuador is on the verge of a full all-out civil war inside of Ecuador? Am I overstating the situation? Let alone the contagion into other countries. Venezuela's already gone through some kind of a horror for the last several years. We're not wrong. We're going after Maduro. We're going to pick him up, drag him in, and try to help Venezuela. Why would Venezuela be so poor when they literally have the greatest oil reserves on planet Earth, greater than anything in the Mideast? It's insane. So we're coming to help. We're going to make a difference. We're going to get our country under control. We're going to help get other countries under control, including our friends in South America and Brazil specifically. So anyway, I hope that helps you guys in some of your conversations.
Thanks, Juan. Yeah, that helps a lot. Sounds like you got a bit of a bug.
Well, I've been fighting. I went over to Johannesburg in South Africa the other day, and I had a little bit maybe of a cold prior to that, but just barely there. But we were out by some of these huge camps. I was with a doctor friend of mine who helps treat people. He does it for next to nothing. That don't have any other health care. And so we went out to areas where these people live, and they're burning just everything. The smoke was just unbelievable. And we went through one spot that was extremely acrid. And afterwards, we both felt like we had been burned in our sinuses and our lungs, and something that was extra, extra toxic. And so I've been kind of fighting that. And like he said the other day when we were talking about the same issue, it's like our lungs were burned or singed on the tissue. And it's not like a normal cold or something like that. It's been like the body's healing from a burn on the skin, only the tissues. I'm definitely getting better, but it does affect how long it might be viable to do an interview. So I apologize, but that's out there. So
no, what I'd like to do, Juan, is have everyone ask a question. I'll ask my question at the very end, but Anna, why don't you start? Ladies first. Why don't you ask Juan a question?
Well, I don't have many questions to Juan, but only I want to listen to, first of all, I want to say hello to Brent Long, who is listening to us and is spreading the news that we are talking to Juan. He's a very, very, he loves Juan, and who doesn't? But anyway, my question.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty. I can tell you there's more than one that are not happy with me, but whatever. I just take it with a deep breath.
Well, we love you. I love you. So that's enough. And Jen loves you. So that's enough. But for now, Juan, we have the situation, talking seriously, of course. We now have, we totally understand. I'm not scared at all about anything that it's on the news. I have my French pink glasses, so I'm very, okay, come on, bring it on. I understand about Lula being there, and we are controlling exactly what you are saying, so we don't have a civil unrest in Brazil. But we are seeing Bolsonaro in trial this week. So, and I think my interest in his situation, it's more like as him as a person, not as a politician, and I think he's a very important character for our history. He is flipping the history on the way I understand. He is connecting many characters and exposing them. Him himself is being exposed. I matured so much through through these years. And how do you see Brazil coming from? We are approaching 9/11. His trial is ending by 9/11. So I think it's very symbolic for us to have this week and him in this situation, don't you think?
Well, you know, the people that we have in protective custody here in the United States who stole the 2020 election, when questioned in their testimony during depositions and statements, have stated repeatedly that the number of countries that they flipped the vote in and stole elections in is 71 total. Many of them multiple times, because their work out of Venezuela had gone on for now almost 30 years. And even before, they were working on stuff. Brazil has always been one of the key locations that they controlled the leadership in, plus the narco money. I'll remind some of the Brazilians present here in the audience. Back in the early 80s, as Reagan came into office, we went to war with the drug people that were moving drugs into America. And it's too long of a short story for today. My voice would go first, but American intelligence created the 6 cartels and then reduced it down to 5, centralizing the drug trade to Colombia. And the only thing you could get out of other locations was paste, coca paste. And we created a market for that, and then they allowed it to go to Colombian cartel leaders. And the idea was we could seize half of the chemicals twice a year, anywhere that we found it in Colombia. It's a long story. I've said it before. I've told the story before, but the only place that we didn't include in what we were doing initially was Brazil. Out in the jungle there in central Brazil, there was a huge drug lab operation. They had 200 aircraft, all different sizes, pilots, crews. They had 3 main labs producing cocaine, and the paste was being imported by trucks and cars and aircraft from all over South America to make the finished paste. It was so big, it was impossible for Brazil or anybody else to go after the people running this operation, and many government officials were involved in this. And so, without announcing anything to the world, because it was a threat to the whole world with this cocaine, President Reagan authorized a military assault on that jungle lab. And Special Forces Ranger detail out of Fort Lewis, Washington, which at that time, I think they'd just changed the name to Fort Lewis McChord, Air Force Base, Joint Base Lewis McChord, I think is what they call it, right in that era. But they flew him down, Special Operations Project. They dealt with one other operation out of Honduras, and they dealt with the situation in Brazil. And they seized all those aircraft. They seized an unbelievable amount of cocaine and money. And then there was private negotiations with the people in power in Brazil at the time to correct and stop a lot of that mischief that was going on. And if you recall, everybody in this audience probably remembers, either directly because they lived through it or because their family, their parents have talked about it. But the hyperinflation that Brazil went through literally for a decade. And so you understand it a little bit more completely when the government was just printing money like crazy and promising to the moon. In many ways, that directly tied back into the corruption within the Brazilian government and into other nearby governments, including the drug trade, the money laundering, and things like that. Brazil has tremendous petroleum reserves, and yet, they have to go burn their forests down for the alcohol to add to the fuels. It actually doesn't make sense if you game it out. You lay it out on the cost and the return. The biofuel to burn down the rainforest. Are you out of your minds? This is politicians listening to a bunch of nitwits out of Central Europe and Eastern or Western Europe who are completely out of their minds. I'll give you an example. Germany. Germany is in a dire situation. They had just built the most modern, the most advanced nuclear power plant on the planet. Finished it up about 6 years ago, ran it for 18 months, and then out of pressure out of London, the city of London, this whole green thing, they shut down the greenest energy project on the planet, the most advanced, safest, everything, dismantled it and put it on a dock up in Norway. A friend of mine bought it and took it down to Egypt, and they're reinstalling it down there. Excuse me, hold on a second. They went to wind and solar. You can't power Germany on wind or solar in the wintertime. It's insane. And then you go to war with Russia and cut off the fuel supply with the Nord Stream that's going to come to you. And all of it's really all about getting their oil and gas for the next 100 years out of Saudi Arabia in pipelines running across Syria, up into Turkey, and then into Central Europe. That's all messed up now because of the way things went. So now they want to run it off of the coast of Israel, up by the boot of Italy, through Montenegro, and into Central Europe. 5 million people have been displaced out of Ukraine. Millions of kids missing. Somewhere between 2.5 and 3 million dead total between both sides, all because of an energy problem, because the energy was going to come from Russia that was trying to, be, settle down and be a world partner trader. And they just got kicked in the ass for doing exactly what we told them they had to do at the end of the Cold War. We got a bunch of insaniacs, lunatics, madmen, power-hungry monsters that are trying to take over the whole planet. And places with 1,000 names that don't mean anything to anybody else are just a boot step for them. Places across Central America, South America, Brazil being one of them. You're in one of the most precarious locations on the planet in this power play that's going on. And what's at the core of it right now on the money side? BRICS. BRICS is a play against the dollar. It's a Chinese-backed and City of London-backed effort to destroy the dollar. None of those pallets of cash that are out there were going to be hurt by anything going on here on the BRICS side, okay? Because they had a plan to reorient the whole world. What Trump's doing right now, he's laying down the gauntlet. You play your games, we'll play ours. He's going to protect the U.S. Treasury dollar, which is backed by gold and silver. That's constitutional to the U.S., our U.S. Constitution. And he's going to let the Federal Reserve system around the world, including Brazil, tied into the City of London, take the hit, suffer the consequences. It's going to be a huge dust up across the world. My bets are on Trump winning this one. And so people in Central and South America need to be aware there's a huge money war, bond war, financial war that's in play right now, and you don't want to get caught in the middle of it. Tangibles, you people in Brazil survived hyperinflation unlike almost anything else that's ever occurred on planet Earth. And you did it with style. You held it together. Argentina went through some problems like that.
Yeah.
You have a history of surviving this. You need to be in that mode right now because fight's on, and unfortunately, it's not done.
Well, we are ready. Bring it on, Juan. As you said, we are I love my people and I trust my people and everyone who is listening. We are very strong exactly by everything they done to us. And I will quote, I will ask you your permission. I will quote the Emperor Peter II, who is one of the most important, for me, he is the most important figure in the Brazilian history. His life and everything he was put up to do. And his mom, of course. Well, his quote is the following: "The first necessity of the judiciary is effective accountability. And although some judges do not go to jail, such as certain well-known offenders of the Supreme Court of Justice, this will be not achieved." So he was quoting this 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago, and we are still facing the same situation. But this time we are much more aware. We have us. We have, excuse myself again, we have the royal house of we the people. And please, I don't want to keep one just from talking about
Well, hold
Brazil.
on. I want to finish. You know what? Of all the places in South America, all the countries that I've enjoyed to be at, and friends that I have, some of the most moral and strongest, even from a God-centered, religious, moral standpoint, people out of Brazil, because several of the countries there in the area, some of the greatest corruption opportunities to make gain through graft and on the back of your fellow citizens happens in Brazil. So you have to have something different in your soul, in your character, in your being, to stand up against that when everybody else is taking the payoff, the bait, accepts the crookedness in the courts, etc. Some of the people that I think are my greatest heroes are people that were well established in the Brazilian system, doing very difficult things in a very difficult situation. I have one right now that I'm dealing with this instant that I can't talk about for the moment, but literally lost $1 billion because he took a moral stand about 5 years ago, and on behalf of Brazil, and a significant hit to his wealth, his family's wealth, because he wouldn't do the wrong thing. There's a scripture in Revelations, I believe it's Revelations 2, chapter 2, verse 2, I think it is. And it is, "I know your works," talking to the seven churches, lampstands, this end time period. And it's this picture of Christ walking in between the lampstands of the churches. And he says, it should make your knees knock if you're on the wrong side of this, to know God says, "I know your works." He knows everything that's going on. If you're out there and you're on the right side of good and justice uh, try and do the right thing to the best of your ability, looking for divine assistance to hold a line and do whatever. God knows your work, and He's right there with you. If you're on the wrong side of justice, if you're participating in and condoning evil, if you're a wicked judge who's taking payoffs, same words. I know your work. I know exactly who you are. That should strike some fear in people. We're at a turning point in history. And all of these things, you have what we call a normalcy bias, where because it's always gone a certain way, it's always been a certain way, it's always going to be that way, because that's what's been going on, it's what's going to keep going on. With President Trump and the people behind him, that is now being turned on its ear. Trump says he was invited to run for president. Who invited him? He's told you that also. 200 generals. It's a lot bigger than just Trump. And they're in the background. You don't hear about them, but they're working together to recapture control of the helm of the ship of state of America. And as we get America back under control from these hijackers, these pirates that have stolen control of our ship of state, then it's our full intent with a fervor to go and help our friends who likewise have been hijacked. One of whom was Brazil, just like Reagan. Early on in his administration, right out of the chute, sent those Rangers down to stop the drug trade there in the Amazon forest and to shut that whole operation down that was massive. And it helped the Brazilian politicians that were good guys to get this under control. We're going to be doing that in other places. Look at what he's doing right next door there with Venezuela. They're not going to be able to export their terror, their corruption, their parasitic life into the rest of South America. Maduro's on the run. He's hiding out. He's hiding low. They think they can fly a couple aircraft past one of our cruisers off the coast and threaten us. Try that again. You only got one time with that. And other corrupt leaders in other countries in South America and across the world are going to feel our pain also. The next one on the list is Ramaphosa out of South Africa, who was getting drugs that China was moving on Chinese ships from Venezuela, coming over to the coast of South Africa, and then exchanging drugs for very expensive exotic foods, abalone and other things, which they were taking back to China and selling at great cost. They had been facilitating this breakdown in South Africa. You're going to see all of that being challenged. They're not going to get away with it freely like they have been, including the chaos that Venezuela would like to export to other countries. That's why you're seeing what's going on in Ecuador right now. And the vote fraud in Brazil. You think we don't know about that? Of course we know about that. We're coming. As we expose exactly what happened in the vote fraud in America, we will also be exposing exactly what happened in the vote fraud in Brazil. The people that got into office are not the people that the electorate, the Brazilian citizens, actually were voting for to go into office. These were people that were selected to be put in office, not people that were elected to be put in office by the people. And Brazil, just like America, needs to be a place that's of the people, by the people, for the people. We're coming. We're going to help you out, not to be our brother's keeper, but to be our brother's brother right there in Brazil. We appreciate you. You know, we're all in the Americas together. We're going to come help you.
Thanks, Juan. Dylan, you got a question for Juan?
Oh, I got so much I want to ask Juan. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of a tougher one that I haven't heard you speak much about, which has to do with what's going on with the National Guard moving into all these different cities in Chicago, and Trump's executive order about taking the homeless off the street. The racial tension in America seems to be building up rapidly. With each new day, there's a new event that's going viral online. And I was actually just blocks away from the attack that occurred in Cincinnati that went viral about a month or two ago. And now we have another one today, a woman getting stabbed on a train in Philadelphia. And it seems that Nick Fuentes is going more and more viral with his rather extreme positions on these subjects. And so I'm kind of wondering, I've been doing a lot of research into this and even trying to think of what I would think the solution should be myself. You know, I've never been in a position to necessarily affect that change, but now Trump really is. And it seems that he is doing things that are going to have a big change in America in terms of poverty versus wealth and racial dynamics. And so I'm wondering, in Trump's one of his most historic press conferences, I would say, ever, when he announced that he was federalizing DC, he made the rather controversial statement that we're going to get rid of the slums. And of course, that coming from Trump is going to trigger the left to say all the things they typically say about him, you know, racist, Hitler, orange Hitler, etc. But this isn't the first time it's been done. You know, I've been looking into the past and looking into programs like Hope 6 when many of the worst projects were actually demolished already. And so we're kind of in phase 2 of this. And Trump has proposed some things like limits on welfare. And now with the National Guard going into Chicago, we're seeing even Chicago gangs talking about like open war with these federal forces, which is not going to go well, as we all know. But could you tell us anything about what is Trump's longer term plan, maybe that has been discussed less, about what to do about this systemic poverty and the projects which seem to be only getting worse in a lot of cases and not getting better in America?
Well, I mean, the war on poverty. America's put, $100 trillion into the war on poverty. Did we win? No. It's not a money issue. It's a moral issue. You have to challenge people to, be productive, to get in and play their part. And if they, if you think you're going to just buy people out of poverty, it really doesn't work that way. Poor people have poor ways, okay? Now, we've had a society that's been screwed up for the last many, many, many decades. And by degrees have destroyed people. I'll give you an example right now. Because of the actions of people within the farm operations in certain parts of the country, especially Arkansas, there's a big discussion going on in the country right now. About a quarter to a third of the farmers in the state of Arkansas are on the literally brink of bankruptcy within the next few months. They got hit by several bad things, bad weather, some crop prices being driven down for various reasons due to high production in other places. And here's family farms that have been in the same family for 5 and 6 generations. And suddenly they could be wiped out, go to the bank, go to, auction, and they're out. And who's going to come in and take those farms? Is it going to be Bill Gates and some of his buddies and friends that are investors? Is it going to be some other huge farm operation? Now, there is a counterpoint to that. It's the famous story about the buggy whip. Are we going to, feel bad for the buggy whip makers? There was a time only 150 years ago, the only way that you got around with any kind of speed and with any kind of a larger cargo was with horse and buggy. Even though trains were there, you didn't run a railroad track to every farm in the country. And then as the first cars came online at the turn of the last century, it was steady, but it was slow still. And their dependability, their utility was marginal. It wasn't really until the late teens, early 20s, it started to take on a life of its own. Now, prior to that, it was kind of this, jostling between the horse and buggy and the horseless buggy. The streets in many of the major cities, people have this, oh, it was so beautiful with horses and things like that. The mire, the muck, the horse poop in many cities, people complained about the stench because it was a foot and a half, 2 foot deep of just manure. And in these cities, and they try to keep it down under control a little bit, but it wasn't easy. The car was, cleaned a lot of these places up. But whole industries related to horses ended up slowly dying off. The farms that catered to growing and training horses for use, both for horseback and for pulling different types of carts and buggies for industrial purposes, they started to go away. People had to switch to other industry. It's something like that where Arkansas is with better and better farming techniques, tractors, whatever, higher production farms, etc. There's probably an argument there, but there's plenty of people that are critical of the farmers themselves because of the way that they relied on government welfare and the government telling them when to plant and sow and reap and like that. And so the question is, what do we do about those people? Because when they go bankrupt, a lot of the people with those farms, where are they going to go to work? Oh, they're going to go be a university professor over at the university, or they're going to work agriculture department at the university. They're going to be mowing lawns at the university. Really? No, they'll be raising animals, animal husbandry. They'll be over at the track helping with the horses at the track. No, they won't. They all going to become Uber drivers. What's going to happen with those people in Arkansas? It's a very, very, very serious situation where you could cause a large portion of the state to go into some kind of mass poverty. We had something similar years ago when it was decided that because of the spotted owl, we could no longer do the forest and the logging that we've been doing for a couple hundred years here in the United States. And whole huge sections of forest were cut off from logging. And we're going to have to go to other materials than wood. It's a renewable resource. It grows over time. It's wood. It's an agricultural crop that has a 50-year growth cycle instead of a 1 year or 2 year growth cycle. It's just another crop. We plant more trees than we take out, and have been for a long time. But somebody got it in their mind that we could, it's carbon. When you use the trees, you're putting carbon into the atmosphere and all sorts of bullshit. And so it's a threat to the planet. So we put hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in the logging industry out of a job. Truck drivers, sawmill workers, people that going out and actually maintain the forests, maintain the trees. Just put them all out of work. Cut the workload or the workforce there by like half. There's plenty of people in this audience probably remember the horrors of that time. And then the people having to go to a school to learn how to be a computer technician, learn how to do coding or whatever. The older folks, it never clicked. They went into a form of poverty and ended their lives barely able to get by. A lot of them living off their kids. And the next generation had to pick up the ball. So there's real danger in what's coming and this reorienting the world. Brazil is in a very, very similar situation. At some point, you won't be able to burn off more forest and jungle. Hopefully, smarter minds come in before it's too late. Stop that slow that down, stop it. But the rest of South America is in a similar situation. You have all the resources in the world. You have the mining wealth. You have 1,000 ways that people in Brazil can do just fine. And yet, I apologize. I had a phone call. You have a lot of ways to make a great living across South America. You have tremendous resources in mining. You have agricultural opportunity. There's so many great ways, but there's some kind of a reset that has to happen down there to pull it together. And the starting place is good government. You've got people that are just in there. They have a short-term perspective. I got mine. Too bad about you. I got an office. I got my money. Got my payoffs. We got aid from the U.S. Well, USAID, that went away. And other stuff's going away. We're throwing up tariffs because we were being preyed on here in America. We have to survive. And but South America has plenty of resources to recover and go a great direction. You just got to get politicians to work for the people, not for themselves.
Hey, Juan, I had a quick question. Actually, I want to just throw it over to Rob Cunningham, because he is probably on the panel one of the best to speak on the topic of, you had mentioned currency earlier, and you had mentioned a lot of things from a financial standpoint. And in the United States itself, that is probably the biggest thing outside of the 2016 2020 election that we won't get into, because that was my question, and I don't want to go there because that's probably another 5 hours. But I think Rob can probably talk better about something that is probably the biggest concern in terms of where we stand from a currency, from a financial standpoint. And I'd like for Rob to just kind of, introduce himself and just kind of walk through that.
Well, and the most important subject, I think it's actually more dangerous than nuclear war right now. You got to think about what I just said there. That's one of the most audacious statements a person could possibly make. But it will kill more people. It will have a longer term impact on our lives. It will reset the globe in favor of the biggest monsters on the planet, megalomaniacs. We're in the middle of a Spectre type scenario in a James Bond movie. So talking about the currencies and the activities going on behind the scenes in the banking sector in this exact moment is not wasted time. It's not overstated. In fact, while the senators were on vacation over the last few weeks, Trump called in several of his most trusted Senate allies for private talks, looking at the situation over at Treasury versus the Federal Reserve. That's how serious it is. And even let people wonder about his personal physical health, because he wasn't doing public stuff, because he was working behind the scenes on exactly that issue. They're getting ready to do certain things and make certain moves. Why? Because the other guys are also. Do you wait till they make their move before you act? No. We're anticipating. We expect some things. So we're preparing so that we can have a nice, tidy response. They make a move, we make a move. So with that in mind, Mr. Cunningham, I'm glad to field any question you got there and try to see if I can give a correct answer.
Well, Juan, thank you for your tireless decades of work, and I know you're always in demand. We have one really great mutual friend in Nino Rodriguez. I've maybe been on his show 20 times, and you've probably been on it 2,000 times.
Nino.
Oh, Nino. And Maverick, yeah, all that. So love him like a brother. He's a great man. But
he is.
I'd like to set up a narrative. One of my passions, one is tabletopping the complexity of the war that we're in to the average person. And you try to take a very complicated set of variables and discuss it over coffee. And when you combine the political war, the spiritual war, the financial war, the pharmaceutical war, the military war, to a bunch of folks that haven't studied history, that don't know politics, that don't know warfare, that don't know the nature of the demonic evil that we're dealing with, and the forces that are here to divide, deceive, devour, and destroy. They're lurking for people that have no knowledge, so that, as Christ said, my people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge. The real knowledge that they're missing is the quantum level of evil that exists on this world. They don't know the spiritual laws, so they get their asses kicked, right? And this demonic evil manifests itself into the hospitals, into the schools, into the pulpits, into the banks, into government, into every aspect of life. It just drips into everything. And if we don't have the right optics, it's impossible for people to understand what the hell's going on. So
okay, let me short stop you right there for a second and pick
Sure.
up right there. But let me short stop you for a second. A+ gold stars all the way across the map for you. People look at the economic crisis as something that, just better management, better leadership, better schools or education or something like that. Better detectives and going after criminals. Yeah, that'll solve the problem. Better politicians. We just got to, run better elections, get a better politician in there, whatever. I think you're missing the mark.
Amen.
You must have. In fact, I just had Professor Clements. I had a private conclave out in Washington, D.C. the other day, and I had about 24 of really the movers and shakers within the patriotic movement out there, and a bunch of people that are holding government office now. They're reviewing where things are at right this second, and it was just so refreshing to get to spend time together. But afterwards, Professor Clements and I had a chance to just have a little bit of a reprieve and discuss some stuff. There's something that I want to do that I don't want to disclose, but he would be central to that operation. In the course of it, one of the things that we discussed was, if you don't have moral society being taught, okay, within the electorate, at the schools from the very beginning, if you're not teaching the morals of interaction, the 10 commandments, the greatest commandment of all, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not making that a basis for societal interaction, then everything else is moot. Because if you try, you don't have enough fingers and toes, and neither does everybody else in society, to constantly be coming up against the bad guys and anticipating every kind of evil that the devil can dream up.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. Okay. Look at the girl on the train the other day.
Oh.
She's just looking at her phone till an instant before she was attacked. She had no clue she was in danger. A madman, an insane person, attacks her completely out of the blue for no godly known reason except just pure evil.
Right.
Okay. But until you've been mugged, till you've been conned by a really good con man, you don't realize how vulnerable you truly are. And how instantly everything in your world can change. It's one thing when it's a very remote, isolated thing. It's another thing when it's right in your life, right next door, right in your workplace, right in your church. You know, one of the most horrendous evils out there, as far as I'm concerned, is these wolves dressed up in sheep's clothing, the finest sheep's clothing they can have sewn up, working in the churches, in the pulpits across the country, you know, as though they're somehow God's appointed minister with a special word. And, you know, send us 1995 and we'll send you the holy oil, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Amen.
Preying on people who are themselves seeking God himself. But that was going on at Christ's time. Look at what Christ did when the money changers had captured control of the temple. Christ never said it wasn't the temple of God. He went there and spoke from the scriptures at the front of the temple. So he wasn't denying that it was a place where God's presence was supposed to be at. But the people hijacked those operations from the high priest right down through the ranks, were all had turned his temple into a money-making operation.
Right.
And then they're the ones that are reaping all the benefits.
Well,
And
to that point, I say this to people all the time. You want to look at the three most evil, demonic, possessed entities in the world. It was Jesus saw the money racketeering operation. They converted the house of worship, God's house, into a money changers operation. He turned over the tables because they were lying and cheating and deceiving people. And 5 days later, the religious people, the money changers, and the politicians nailed him to a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you have those same three entities that are culpable in hating the trueness, the reality of the Christed spirit, because they can't monetize that. They need to be the middleman to keep people dependent on that friction called religion, and donating and ringing bells and burning candles and handing out money and rubbing beads and worshiping the man in the pulpit, and then walking out of that 1 hour a week service and just as dumb as they were the day before and the day after. They're not equipped. They're not equipped to walk, to do that love walk and walk in the way as Jesus taught us that we needed to walk in the way.
Let me bookend that with something that's virtually never spoken anywhere in the church. I have never heard a sermon on this, but let me bookend it with something that is important, I think, for all of us to realize. The attempts at militarizing God's people, people in the church, to the other extreme. Judas Iscariot, he was not from the area that the disciples were from. He wasn't a fisherman. He wasn't, tax collector, all the other stuff. He was from a region it was about 100 miles away. And in that region was kind of this militia class of the Jews. It's said that he was a cousin of Christ, so from some other part of the family, but in their culture, their language, cousin can be very far removed, okay? The interesting thing about Judas was that he was actually considered to be much smarter, a business class type person. That's why he sought out to be the one that carried the purse, because he was more sophisticated, more schooled. He had the right credentials. And this was this class of Jews who sought to take back Jerusalem from the Romans and to kick them out in one great mighty war effort, and to retake the land for all the right reasons before God. A very militant class, take up arms. And there's not that many Roman soldiers. here. There's not that many that are in collusion with the Romans. If we just rise up together all in one day, we could take back Jerusalem. God would bless us, and we'd have our land back. And within a year, Rome would come down with, a dozen legions, and they'd be in the hell of a fight. And so Judas was from that particular group. When you start looking at his actions and his history within the apostles, he was always advocating from a very business side. For example, when the woman came and broke the alabaster jar with ointment in it and anointed Christ from his head to his feet with embalming oil, very fragrant preservatives that would cost a year's wages, okay, to the average person. And she broke the alabaster jar and then poured it over Christ and prepared his body for burial. God himself had given this woman an understanding of what was about to happen. She had heard Christ's word where he said, I have to go to Jerusalem and be punished and tortured and killed. He told his own apostles that. Peter said, no way, we won't let it happen, Christ. If they come for you, every one of us will fight with our life to the death to protect you. No problem, we're all going to do it. But that wasn't what God had in mind for that exact moment in time. Christ will come in the clouds with a great mighty army. Just as he left, he'll return. But this time he'll have an army with him. The dead in Christ raised up first, and then the living. All will be changed in an instant, but not all will know physical death. And that army takes control of the world at the end of this age. But Judas and the people around him, Judas saw himself as the leader of this militia group, if you will, that was going to retake Jerusalem and then the rest of Israel and start the war against the Romans. And God was going to pull his angels out of heaven and they were going to win the land back. It was a movement that clearly, while in many ways we'd agree with, we say, yeah, go for it, yes, was out of step with God's will at that exact moment in time. So you can do all the right things for all the right reasons and be out of step with what God actually wants at a particular moment. Unless God himself directs you, you're on very dangerous ground if you're just going on, gut instinct, a couple of scriptures, some rah-rah talk around the campfire.
That is exactly right. Exactly right. Well,
and let me just add this one thing. I want people to further understand this. When Judas was approached by the high priest and the temple workers, they already knew that he was vulnerable. They could sniff it out. They knew that he was the one that carried the purse, that he was the one that wanted to control that. In fact, it's said, for he carried the purse. Okay? That sounds like every politician. Okay, everybody had, if they wanted bread, if they were going to give a donation to some, lady with her, mite, a few cents for bread, etc. When the woman broke the alabaster jar, what did Judas say? Why have you allowed this woman to do this? He's scolding Christ. Why did you just let this woman do that? If she had just taken that jar and traded it in the bazaar, she would have gotten a year's wages, which she could have put into the purse. Or he held the purse. It would have gone into the treasury and we'd know I already have an idea what we need to do. He wanted to fund the war and the armament to go take back Jerusalem at this time when all the Jews were there during the Passover week, and you have your whole army there present, ready to go. Let's do it when everybody's here. There's only a small number of Roman soldiers, and we could win this thing. We take over the temple from the high priest and like that. But they approached him as the weak link and offered him just 30 pieces of silver. Why? Because he was embarrassed. What was he embarrassed by? He's there as the one guy that knows how to manage money, who sees all of the commerce going on. And when Christ overturned the money changers' tables, and all the money was just thrown on the ground, and the sacrifices, the cattle, the birds, everything sent to flight. Okay, the chaos, the problems within the community for the people that were just selling bread or the innkeepers, etc. What Christ did was very disruptive to the community for business purposes during the Passover week. Judas was upset and embarrassed because he was a businessman and they just affected the business there in the town during the Passover week. They came to him and said, look, they never told him they were going to kill Christ. They just needed to take him into protective custody so that he wouldn't do anything more to disrupt the Passover week. And if he'd help them and make sure they got the right guy, then he would be the one. He's the cousin of Christ. I'm related. Look, if you lock Christ up, I'll get these guys under control. I'll sort the rest of the apostles. I know them all really well. We've done miracles together, no problem. God does miracles through me too, okay? But I could probably lead this better than Christ is because I understand how to work with the businessman. Let me go smooth it out, work it out, okay? You guys do it. Hey, we'll give you 30 pieces of silver, and that'll help to finance your operation. And then, oh, by the way, when you're ready to start your militia thing and all your buddies show up, we're going to take it over from the Romans. We're right there with you, okay? So he took the 30 pieces of silver. When he realized they were going to crucify Christ, he tried to give them back the silver and they wouldn't take it back. And he committed suicide. He got conned. He got conned by all these monsters. There's a lot of people in the Patriot movement that they themselves are operating like Judas. They're allowing themselves to be conned. They're not in step with what God wants to do, what his plan is. And yet they think they're doing the very best thing for the movement overall. And they're off track, off base. Right. And you need to be in prayer about what God actually wants to do. They're the ones that'll be the first ones to say, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Trump's an idiot. Trump's, going to mess this whole thing up. Oh, okay. Well, he's the one anointed by God to be in that position, saved by grace from the sniper's bullet and from the food poisoner's bullet. His food taster, his career ended because they almost got Melania and President Trump at a previous time. He's the one where there have been numerous attempts. Remember early in the first term, all the Republicans were going to a location to consider how the Republicans were going to work early on in administration. Remember the
Paul Ryan led escapade?
Yes, and the cement truck that got in the way of the tracks and almost was intended to derail the train. Drones in the air, all sorts of craziness. Look, there have been dozens of attempts to kill President Trump. Don't kid yourself. But God himself has protected Trump. And then you have people within the Patriot movement that are very light, very ready to go attack Trump as though they would do better. They know what's supposed to be done better. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's going to get us all killed. Okay.
They're weasels. They're scared. They're ignorant. They're uninformed. They've never been in combat. They don't know a damn thing about finance or geopolitics or Satan, for that matter. They have no idea.
Now you're back to the real core, because at the end of the day, and then I'll let you go back to where you were going. Are you listening to your Father in heaven? Right. Or are you listening to the other father wannabe. I think it's very interesting that Christ begins the Lord's Prayer, Our Father in heaven. Oh, well, could there be any other father? Yeah, the devil would love to be your father. He'd love to, have you think that, he's the one that's, sired you. And what did Christ say to the people at the temple? The Sadducees and Pharisees. Ye are of your father, the devil. You got to pick a lane. You got to choose which way you want to go. Who are you going to serve? We choose to serve our Father in heaven, and then we recognize his action, his blessing to put somebody lawfully into the position that President Trump's in. And we support him in that position. God chooses amongst the affairs of men who our leaders can and will be. So anyway, sorry, I kind of diverted quite a bit, but I wanted to get that point in because that's the counterpoint to the money people was the militarized side to take us into a war that's not the right war at the right time with the right people under the right auspices.
Well, Juan, I believe, and thank you for that, because the context, what you drove home is the biggest picture can only be the biggest picture. There's only one. And the biggest picture is that we're at a perpetual war. We live in this world, but not of it. We either serve one father or the other. The war is a spiritual war against the forces of darkness, and everything else below that is a skirmish. Yep. Everything else below that's a detail. And so when I try to, can you see my screen that I'm sharing, Juan?
I can, thank you.
Okay. So the way in which I like to explain this to people that are having a hard time getting their heads around this is, first of all, God made a covenant with Abraham, and Abraham had two sons, and one was the reigned over Israel, and one reigned over the Arabs. And so when people, even in the Middle East, say, my father Abraham, the Arabs think you're talking to them, and the Jews think you're talking to them. But I bring that up is God can't do anything in this world unless he does it through a man or a woman, because he gave us sovereignty and agency. So if he wants anything done and not be a liar, he has to pick a man like Trump or Saul that turns into Paul, or somebody in the world to take action with faith on the instructions from God.
Well, let me just take a 1 minute diversion there, and the way I would say it, and it matches where you're at. God gave the earth and everything that's in it to Adam, and it was without any qualification. Adam didn't do anything to receive it. There was no, if you do this, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll take it away. God's not an Indian giver. He gave the earth and everything that's in it to Adam and his seed before Adam even had children. So Adam knew that there was a time coming when he would have his own offspring, even before Eve was introduced to him. Then he gave Adam dominion, authority over everything that creeps and crawls and moves upon the earth. Everything. The devil sought to usurp that.
And Adam symbolized all of mankind, not just the individual, but Adam represented the human species.
That's right.
So God was giving all of us, not just Adam, agency.
Adam and his seed.
To have agency and jurisdiction and sovereignty over everything in the Commonwealth, everything in the kingdom of God. The whole world was the Garden of Eden.
Well, and so then the other thing is he gave him dominion over everything that creeps and crawls and moves upon the earth. He put him at the top of everything in authorities. Now, that was usurped or attempted to be usurped con that Satan did through sin at the garden, but that was all rectified at the cross by the blood of Christ. And so all things were restored. All the authorities were restored. Now, a lot of people get caught up with, why does God let such horrible things happen to people, like that poor girl on the train that was just killed? Why does he allow pedophiles to move across the face of the earth? Why does he allow stolen elections and evil politicians and mobsters to exist? Excuse me. The way you should be saying it, why do you allow it? It's your planet.
Amen.
God gave it to you, okay? And so we are the ones who are responsible when sin prevails, when evil prevails.
Amen.
Anywhere. So we're the ones that God has given the responsibility to be the caretakers in this world, to take up our responsibilities, to see to it that things are trimmed and kept neat, that places don't fall into complete total chaos and disarray, like what I saw in Johannesburg, and the filth and the environment that small children are raised into. It's absolutely grotesque.
And Juan, to your point, God gave Adam and man everything. Didn't have a lot of preparation. He was tempted. His pride got the better of him. Satan won that battle. Then Jesus comes. He redeems everything. A perfect God in the flesh. Okay, so let's look at Adam as Adam 1.0. Jesus, in his absolute perfection, was Adam 2.0. And
the second Adam is how the scripture states it. Yes.
Right. And now he gave birth to a brand new species after he rose, to Adam 3.0, which is you and me. But we have a law book. We have a Holy Spirit. We have the understanding of the way. We have the scriptures. We have a lawgiver, a law teacher, a law administrator, if you will, our Holy Spirit. We have a law book. The only variable left is the law student. We either understand it or we're ignorant. And if we don't understand the laws and principles and we get our asses kicked, it's not God's fault. It's our ignorance's fault.
Well, a lot of times, I would say, even with what we just said, those that are here in this audience cannot claim to be ignorant now.
Correct.
Now it's a issue of, will you exercise your God-given rights, authorities, responsibilities? Okay.
Yes.
I'm sweating bullets for children in several countries in Africa. Will they actually get decent water today? Will they get food today? Will they get beheaded today?
Right.
Okay. Because it's still happening. 100 last week dead. Hundreds more. You've got 250,000 people in Uganda, half of which are under the age of 18. They're there for refuge to get away from the terrorists next door in the Congo. Even though it's stopped, it's not quite stopped yet. And the food supply has been cut off to them. And the question is, will we be able to get food into them right away before we have some kind of mass starvation on our hands? And we're fighting to get that taken care of right this second. It's a very, very tenuous moment. Well, we, the owners of this world, have a responsibility before God to do that. He's watching. I know your work. Are you going to say we don't have enough resources? Oh, really? That's
baloney. Scarcity is the biggest lie ever told to mankind.
That's right. And there's other things, the logistics, etc. No, these are decisions made by different men in political positions that, we're fighting real evil that wants some of these deaths. And logistically, there's all sorts of considerations going into it. And a lot of the fight, it looks like it's in Uganda. No, it's not. It's in South Africa. It's right there with the people that have vast wealth in South Africa that are trying to strip the Congo of it from their safe refuge in South Africa. A bunch of monsters. You're living in a James Bond movie.
Yes.
And Spectre is alive and working from its hidden rooms It's cloaked locations right there in plain sight. And many of the players are the rich and famous, the ones that you see on the TV and promoted as, the most beautiful and the smartest and the best entertainers. Okay. And yet they're in on this because, it's a club and everybody else is their chattel. They don't consider life because they serve Satan, Lucifer, the devil, the father of death. Okay. And it is a good versus evil moment.
And Juan, the scriptures give us one option. We have one choice, each and every one of us is we can worship God or we can worship the things of the world, mammon and money, materialism. Over 40% of the law book talks about man's relationship to materialism, pride, ego, stuff, title, position. Even the 12 disciples argued consistently, including at the Last Supper, who's the greatest among you? Who gets to sit on your left? Who gets to sit on your right? Where am I on the org chart? And Jesus was like, oh my God, you guys don't get it, do you? I mean, show me a child, an innocent child has a higher place in the kingdom than you idiots worrying about your ego and title and position.
Well,
right?
Then he shows them and demonstrates for them, he who would be greatest must be the least.
Right.
And washes their feet.
Must be a servant. That's correct. And
Okay.
so let me explain this very quickly because I want to maybe be able to, we can clip this later and help people understand the magnitude. 2,000 years ago was Christ. 250 years ago was the birth of America. And in 3 months, we're going to have the 250th year celebration. So we have a nation that was born on a document that said, on this piece of parchment, before these 56 men signed this piece of paper, this is a declaration, a love letter to God, recognizing first and foremost, all of our rights come from God in heaven, the Father. They are unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're permissioned with these rights. We don't have to ask for anybody for permission to live our life as free agent, sovereign individuals that are sons and daughters of God. Okay? These 56 men signed this document. That's our birth certificate. To be a nation, you have to have laws, you have to have a border, you have to have a government, and you had to have a treaty signed in order to separate from the Queen in England. Well, this document served as the lawful document stating our independence and separating from the Queen. But in this document, the only lawful authorities that existed in America was the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the Army, Navy, and the Marines. So why do I bring that up? In this document, the birth certificate of America, the Declaration of Independence, there's a little clause in it that says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces to a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it's their right, we the people's right. It is also our duty to throw off such a government and to provide new guards. So if our country was hijacked and stolen by usurpers and infiltrated by people not of American origin, and they've hijacked our government, the only way we are going to get rid of that usurping terrorist organization is through the military, because it was the military that underwrote that clause in our birth certificate that says we the people have the right to get rid of them. And the commander-in-chief is the man that would get rid of these people under that document. On my chart, that's why we're at war. We're not going to take a pew poll. We're not going to have an election. We're not going to fix the school systems and get everybody in America to vote, 51% to go to war with an invisible evil that controls the banking system and wants us all dead. This has to be a military operation, period. How did America get stolen? First of all, after the Civil War, look, we didn't have a constitution until 11 years after we signed the Declaration of Independence. So people don't realize what we governed as a nation for 11 years under the Declaration of Independence without a constitution. So from that point forward, the enemy was at work. The enemy was trying to pervert and divide and deceive and do their legalisms and their chicanery. Okay. The Organic Act of 1871 happens after the Civil War. America's broke. People are bloodied and dead and lying all over the battlefield. We didn't have any resources. We were broken financially and morally and every other way. So here come the venture capitalist sharks from London and the city of the Vatican City. They give us a deal. They promise all the money in the world, and all that the signers of this Organic Act had to do was sell their soul to Satan. And that's in essence what they did. From that comes the District of Columbia, which was not a part of the Constitution and never was a sovereign part of America. From then, in 1913, we go from the Organic Act to the Rothschild central banking system, which is Federal Reserve notes, as you talked about, which was their control system with debt slavery, that they could issue money out of thin air, and it had nothing to do with gold or silver. So from 1913, and G. Edward Griffin talks about, this is nothing but a cartel. This is a demonic cartel that took over our country, started printing money, created the IRS, created the income tax, bought the politicians, bought Pharmacia, bought the Department of Education, and here we go. Everything in the corporation is owned by London and the Vatican. The central bank is their bank, and they invade our country. In 2008, when we had the big financial crisis and the market shut down and everything collapsed, people don't realize that in January of 2009, right after that 2008 financial crisis, is when the white paper on Bitcoin came out. They already had a plan for a new system because they knew their old system was flatlined and dead. So they were going to replace it with a CBD type system, a Chinese digital architecture, scare everybody, have surveillance on a scale we would have never escaped had Hillary won. But she didn't. So they have been planning for this since they put Obama in office. The military has known about it. Trump was recruited to come in. Trump came in in 2008, and from in 2016, 2015.
17 technically, yeah.
So he's invited in and recruited in, and he's been in there for 3 terms now as the commander-in-chief, 2 terms as the quote-unquote president of the corporation that is basically defunct. And he's executing a war per the authority of the Declaration of Independence to get rid of the enemy combatants that have hijacked our nation. And if people don't understand that London and the Vatican and the central bankers are no more American than the Federal Reserve is American, then they're missing the whole plot. They don't understand what's going on. Could you put this in your words and tell me where you think I'm right or wrong or missing something here?
No, you're doing a good job. I mean, at the end of the day, this is Casino Royale for planet Earth.
Yes.
This is the biggest game in the history of the world. And it's not just for a country. It's for the entire planet.
Every nation. Yes, sir.
Yeah. But we first have to secure. It's like in the airplanes, okay? Put your own oxygen mask on first and then help the people around you. Why? Because if you help people around you and you pass out and they don't know what to do and they don't help you, it's all over. So you need assistance, or you need to be able to provide assistance. You got to get yourself stabilized first. All judgment begins in the house of the Lord.
Amen.
But why is that? Because God expects his people to get their oxygen mask on and then go help other people around them. He expects us to lead in bringing morality, righteousness, truth, a word in season, and most of all, an understanding of the basis for salvation, the blood of Christ, cleansing from sin, so that we have clean hands to go into the fight with.
And, I would go back further even than the Declaration of Independence. I was just down in South Africa for a couple of weeks. There's a group there a couple of groups, actually, several groups, all looking from different directions about breaking away from the main country, creating a new country, the Cape of Good Hope. Just as America broke away from England, they want to break away from South Africa. The government, the situation with the South African government has become untenable. It's a matter of life and death now. And so, of the 9 states that make up South Africa, the one that's at the southern tip, the people there are looking at the only way forward to survive in every category of life is to break away. They've put together a constitution, a Bill of Rights. They've been talking about this for 2 decades, and now they're down to crunch time. And had a gathering of all the correct people, kind of a summit. Where are we at? What makes sense lawfully internationally? What are the correct steps that have to be taken next? Correct What's people, the impact? Kind of a summit. Where are we at? What makes there we go. It was repeating there. But also how you can do your banking. What about passport control and the ability to have a passport and to travel internationally for business to take place between countries and trade? Are you affected by the tariffs that affect the rest of South Africa once you break off? There's a lot of pieces that go into that. What's the plan moving forward? So their model isn't just what America did in 1776, because where was their origins? The people that founded and built out the Cape landed there in 1652. And their model was the Pilgrims in America in 1620 to create a launch pad to go out into the world and to bring the message of salvation to the world from the Cape of Good Hope. That's why they named it what they named it. And by the way, it's almost the opposite side of the planet from Plymouth Rock. It was interesting that Jen and I got to be at Plymouth Rock and then a couple of weeks later at Cape Hope, where pilgrims seeking religious freedom and the opportunity to own their own property and the fruits of their own labors. Remember, they were serfs up in Europe. They didn't even own the produce of their hands. They had to first give it to the people around the area, and then they'd get a little bit back. Sounds like our situation today. That's what's going on, by the way, in South Africa today. They're having their rights stolen from them. So they're seeking the same way America is seeking to get out from underneath the thumb of those who would enslave us again after we have actually been freed already once and something's happened and we've been hijacked and captured again. In our case, where we're going to break away as America. What, you're going to make Texas a new country? You can do the same with other parts of the country? No, we're going to take our country back and get it back on track.
The point I'd love to make too, and to piggyback on that, is that when Trump talks about leveling the playing field and making America the crypto capital of the world, when he talks about leveling the playing field, that means 100% honesty and transparency in a neutral financial architecture that's built on trustlessness, where everyone can interoperate. No one's operating behind the curtain. There is no master race CBDC that's controlling the planet Earth. Everyone has their own sovereign stable coins, and the interoperability offers perfect transparency and perfect accountability, where people don't have to trust one another. They just have to trust the math that they can inspect, and they can use computers and algorithms and to see, does 2 + 2 = 4? Great, that transaction's good. I don't care if I like 𝖊 or don't like 𝖊. As long as 2 + 2 = 4, we can do business with each other, or not do business,
well, remember,
or not do business, right? We're all going to be free to consent or not consent, contract or not contract. But it's better to do that in a system of trustlessness and transparency than this secret hand and hidden hands of the banking cartel.
the one thing is, if you look at how God describes his personality, he hates corrupt weights and
yes,
everything has to be a trade that's done on an honest weight and measure. And states from the beginning of time practically have had certain measuring devices. A foot or a meter is exactly this long. They even go to lengths to make the measuring devices out of materials that won't expand or contract depending on the heat, even a millimeter.
They had tally sticks. Remember that?
That's right. And so, and honest weights and measures, where an ounce is an ounce. You know, you had people that would shave off the edge of a coin,
yes,
and it's just a hair smaller, but you had to really be looking closely. But if they did it off 100 coins, now they got an ounce. And they wanted to trade, and people didn't have something to measure it against, including a coin that size. They wouldn't notice that little bit left. And in fact, that's why you have the fluting on the edge of the coin. Was so that people couldn't scrape off the edge of the coin and not be detected. Okay, that edge that's braided. So we put measures in place to protect against the criminals and criminality and cons and all that. But what Trump is going to, even when we talk about the cryptos and people get so excited about it, the reality is that it's just a way of doing ledger notes. The real question is, will you tie it to gold and silver coin, minted coin in the Treasury's possession, which you have the option to come take possession of if you want to. And as we transition from a Federal Reserve note and all of these
to a U.S. digital dollar,
to a U.S. dollar tied directly to existing physical silver minted in the U.S. Treasury.
Well,
Go ahead.
Let me bring this up now, because in December 2024, the New York Department of Financial Services, which is the most diligent, compliant organization in the world, there's probably 80, 85 people. It's the hardest place in the world to get compliance, but they authorized an RLUSD, Ripple Labs US dollar, stable coin. Has to be inspected, audited every single month with 1-to-1 or greater than 1-to-1 backing of U.S. Treasury notes or T-bills or bonds, because they're a tier 1 asset. So credit from a country is different than debt from a private bank. But my point being, we do now have a stable U.S., a real U.S. dollar that's soundly backed with tier 1, Basel I recognized tier 1 assets, inspected monthly with 1-to-1 collateral for every RLUSD put into circulation. So we now have sound money if you measure it from a standpoint of that eliminates fractional reserve lending. You cannot have fractional reserve lending and a 1-to-1 requirement behind your RLUSD. And all of this is under the supervision of the Treasury. The Treasury, it reports to Trump, and the Treasury is overseeing not only the RLUSD, of which XRP is part of Ripple, it's part of the digital stockpile, but the New York Department of Financial Services is also underneath the auspices of the Treasury Secretary. So now we have a national currency, stable coin, regulated by the sovereign nation known as America, and the Federal Reserve doesn't have jack crap to do with it.
Well, let me just add a little bit to that. There's some backfilling that has to happen. It hasn't happened yet. I actually trained a bunch of the guys that had to go under NDAs 4 years ago in putting things together, actually 5 years ago, for where we're going right now with how we rebuild our physical reserves at the Treasury. There's a great plan in place. I think it's excellent. It'll take a little bit of time for it to play out the rest of the way. But it's exactly what Trump and others are in the midst of working through right now. So I think it's important that everybody here understand we're on the right path. It's not a done deal yet. And there's a lot of mischief yet that can happen. So don't get the cart before the horse. We're not quite done yet, but we're headed in the right direction. And if you're going to bet on the U.S. dollar and bet on the U.S. dollar at Treasury, gold and silver minted coin, versus Federal Reserve notes. And
how about a Judy Shelton 50-year gold-backed bond?
Well, let me just add one extra thing. So gold and silver traditionally are kind of lousy investments. They neither spin nor toil. They don't make anything. If you ask me, do I want a gold bar or a tractor? If I have a stable society around me and ground available to me that I can rent or own, and yet somebody with the right skill sets, I want the tractor because the tractor will make me money. The gold bar neither spins nor toils. Now I can invest it with someone, and they can, get something against it, a loan against it for something that'll do work, land, a business, something that is productive, and that makes perfect sense. The bonds
or pass wealth to your kids or grandkids.
Well, the bonds are a good long-term way to preserve wealth, especially if you don't have the skill sets or a business or something else. But it's not a great return as a general rule. And you're betting on societally that politicians are going to do a good job of keeping society moving smoothly and things like that. So it's not the worst thing. And for people of massive wealth, literally, they just can't find enough businesses. They, for example, Howard Hughes. If Howard Hughes had just invested the money that he received from his dad, who invented the directional drill bit that made modern oil drilling possible back at the turn of the century, and for the next, up till now, if he had just invested the money he got from his dad at 4% interest, he'd have been worth about 2 to 2.5 times more money than he was worth at the time of his death in 1976. He was actually a horrible investor with all of his businesses and things like that. Where you think, well, no, he had all these amazing things. Yes, he enjoyed doing things with his life, aircraft. A lot of people don't know this. It was the Hughes landers that went and mapped the moon before Apollo went there, allegedly with the first landings. The mapping of the moon occurred with Hughes aircraft or spacecraft landing on the moon and then transmitting back the images and information. He did a lot of things that were his dreams. And so he enjoyed things at a whole different level. But when you say bonds, things like that, if you had a modest rate of return and you're not a very good businessman, or you don't have good opportunities, or you want to make sure there's something for the kids and grandkids, that's not a bad way to go. But if you've got a little aptitude, if you've got an idea, Do I want to invest in a bunch of gold bars? Do I want to invest in Ford or the next space program or something else? If you invest correctly, you can do much better than that modest rate of return. The only other thing is that generally governments give you tax breaks for investing in certain types of bonds, and you avoid some tax, which gives a little bit higher return. But there's some research required to learn what might be best for you.
And President Trump is making multiple allusions to giving 100% tax-free, favorable treatment to U.S. domestic cryptocurrencies like an XRP or a Cardano, HBAR, these ISO tokens that are U.S. based. He's talking about making them all tax-free and capital gains tax-free.
Yep.
Rob, Juan, may I jump into the conversation in
Sure.
between you guys? I'll bring a girl's idea, a woman idea over here. We are in a war, okay? In a war, my father always says that in a war, we always have a lot of information and most of it are not true. And we know that. We have to dig, we need to listen to the right people, we need to decode, we need to feel. Most of all, we need to feel. When I listen to you guys and you are Americans and I compare to Brazilians and we think about investments, as you Juan knows, and you mentioned this before during the show, we have a totally different scenario here in Brazil. Okay, we are striving and we are struggling for 100 years. We don't have the American dream. We are far. We cannot compete with you guys because we barely speak Portuguese. Okay, so Anna, it's completely not Brazil. Okay, so I need to bring this to us because a lot of people who are listening to our conversations, we share anxiety. I don't think the money is, of course, we have to pay attention to Rob's take, to Juan's take, and to everything. But we are in a war. And please listen to my dad. There's a lot of things happening. We cannot be stuck. Oh, this is it. If we have to change, we will change because we are in a war and we don't know I don't know. I can't tell. I can assure this is 100%. I can give my opinion. I can give my perspective, but I don't know. And bringing this sudden aspect to our bringing the miracle to the scenario, it's the godly. It's bringing God to the picture. You know, it's the second coming. And we need to do that fearless, because as much as now we understand about crypto, about golden bars, about silver, we cannot. I just what I have in me, it's the 117% guaranteed. That's it. And each one of us, we have to stick with this, what we have in us. So whatever comes out of the plan, and we trust the plan. We are the plan because we are the storm. We listen to the call. And we are studying, we are talking, we are spreading the information. For now, that's what we can do.
Well, let me dive in for a second.
Please.
Where's the God factor in whatever you may plan or think or try or know to do? You can store up the food, you can have weapons, you can have all the best alliances and friends and be ready for whatever happens. I have someone that was close to me who was very diligent about trying to prepare for an end time scenario, and then one day died in a car accident. Health, ate right, prepared, everything else. You don't know what day or hour your life is required of you. maybe you've made preparations that help others in your family, etc. But the scripture talks about a man who decided to tear down his existing barns and build bigger ones to store all of his grain because he was wildly prosperous. But that couldn't save him from the moment when God called him. Okay. There's a God component with everything that President Trump has done. America could have been denied him at a critical moment if he hadn't turned his head just an extra half an inch in the last moment. You realize when Trump turned his head, that extra half of an inch, the bullet had already cleared the barrel of the gun while it was flying towards Trump at the speed of sound. He turned his head just an extra half an inch. It was the difference between getting the back of his head blown off and it just going through his ear. That's a hand of God moment. And so I think it's important that we all be mindful, but by the grace of God, we're not getting through any of this. Even the calls we might make about preparations and redirection and insight and wisdom and everything else, at some level, it's only by the hand of God that you're even awake. You may have relatives, friends, co-workers, etc., that aren't, making any plans, that don't understand the value of Trump or any of the people around him with what they're doing. And they could care less. And yet they still make it every day. They look like geniuses. God himself knows what his plan is. I would be concerned about being in step with what God's calling you to do and not what any other person is doing. And don't even waste time looking at the people around you and just wanting to mimic what others around you are doing. Good or bad, what has God called you to do? Because he knows what's in your future. And include God in the equation. And then, okay, what makes sense? What's wise? Please God, help. And it's a very personal thing. Should I invest in bonds or gold? Should I invest in a tractor? What should I be invested? Well, God himself knows. If you seek his will, his way, you might get an answer that wasn't what you planned for. There's one story, I don't recommend it from a, let's not all do this. It was this one woman. She needed help. She was praying for divine guidance. And it was the thing that she knew to do. You could do this, the next 1,000 million people could do this, but it wasn't what God called these other people to do. But this woman, she planted like 40 rows of crop for her family in her little garden. This is carrots, this is beets, this is whatever. And she is one of the southern states, southwestern states. And she was trying to provide for her family. She was struggling. There had been some problems with the weather and not all of the crops that come in, but they were just barely getting by. But she got it in her mind and had been praying for divine guidance, what to do. And she had enough money to buy a lot. So she went out. A second here, I got to send this. I have somebody calling me and I have to send it to, there we go. I apologize. I had somebody calling me. I had to send it to outer space, one of my staff. So, but she got it in mind, just like the woman where the prophet told her to go gather all the jars, all the containers that she could find and fill them with water and then go into her prayer mode in her house, lock the doors and pray. And God turned all of the water into oil, which was a very high quality oil, which she was then able to sell to take care of herself and her son. Didn't tell everybody in the town. Doesn't sound like she ever got the chance to do that again. It was a one-time thing. But this gal got it in her mind, she'd go read out the the numbers in her vegetable patch that were the clearest, and ignore the ones that the weathering and everything had washed away. And so she wrote those numbers down and she played them in the next lotto. And she won the next lotto. It wasn't the biggest lotto ever. It was a couple $1 million. But she told that story. She made a big deal out of it. It was God that directed her to do that. We don't know what God might plan for each one of us. For some of us, it's going to be a very meat and potatoes. You have a head, you have a brain. You don't need some special lightning from heaven revelation. You do the things you know because that's what God's giving you intelligence to understand to do next for your preparations, your investments, other stuff. But once in a while, he might give you an instruction that doesn't make sense in the normal way of doing things, but it makes sense to God, and to help somebody, to support something else, because it serves his purposes. And we have to be sensitive. What is God calling each of us to do? And you can't put that on a guru. Can't put that on the pastor with the best televangelist message on TV.
Right.
It's a personal thing. If you're have your ear tuned to what God's saying, God is faithful. If you ask him bread, he's not going to give you a stone. If you ask for him fish, he's not going to give you a serpent. Okay? He has your best interests at heart. And he's just looking to you to look to him, not to men, not to circumstances, not to the earth, not to the creation, but to the creator himself. And if you do that, whatever's coming next, you'll be prepared
Ready.
for, positioned for.
Yes, you will make it.
Juan, we're coming up on 3 hours on this call. I'm hopeful that we can get you to come back. I really appreciate you coming on here. You're
Yep.
such
No,
a welcome.
I really, I got to tell you, I wanted to do this show for quite a while, and you guys know that. And I apologize, I got in late on it today. But you have an eclectic audience that is not the same as many of the other audiences I'm already getting a chance to talk to. So this was an extra special chance to talk with maybe some audience I don't get to talk to very often. And then you guys all had fantastic questions. There's a lot of work ahead for us, but I appreciate all of you. So I appreciate it.
Just before we go, and I want to Juan to listen to this. I'm sorry for your throat, Juan, but I always quote. Of course, you always bring Christ and the Bible, and of course, and I bring literature, and for me, it's very dear to my heart. The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh yes.
And I tell everyone that right now, as much as we are all struggling, there are many people who are living, I don't know, in studios who who had to change their whole life because things are already changing, and we are feeling. But I want, I excuse, I excuse Juan for taking this and talking in front of you about this, but I want everyone to understand that we are all Count of Monte Cristos here, and the same as he went through in Chateau d'If, in the jail. He was imprisoned. I recommend everyone to read the book because it's totally different from the Hollywood version, and it's a dive deep into a soul of a man who changed his life by knowing Christ, and the Christ raised in him, and everything that Christ went through, we are going through. And the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas is it's a much more recent example. And I always quote this because God makes a way, and he was a sailor, he was a Marine, and he was imprisoned because of a rivalry. And inside of the prison, he met Christ, which came through a bishop, a priest, who taught him everything and gave him the map to find the treasure. We are all counts of Monte Cristo, countesses of Monte Cristo. We are going to find this. We had the map, and we have us. So this us here, I'm all happy for saying this. We are all counts of Monte Cristo. We have us, and we are not this time. We are not taking the revenge because that made him not happy. But in the end, he gave up all his fortune because everything he had inside made him want a new beginning with a new person, the new person that he is. It's worth reading much more than listening to me, much more than listening to well, it's a good one when you go and watch Jim Caviezel. It's brilliant. It's outstanding version, but it's not the real version from Alexander Dumas. And I stick to the original. And that's my message. I want to take the opportunity. This would be my prayer. We are all counts of Monte Cristo, and we are going to make it. President Trump is always, when you decode criminal organization, he's giving us numbers. He's giving us, you're holding the purse. What is the purse? Please, guys, this is the chance for us to do it, and we will do it. This time we will do it. I promise you. I'm sorry, I get.
No, that's awesome.
Brazil. This is Brazil.
You know what? One of the greatest, when I get time to just read a book, even if I only read for a half an hour at night before going to sleep, you know, and I love to read. The last several years, last 5 years have been really hard to get to crack a book open. But it's one of the great pleasures of my life. And you get things out of a written book different than you do even watching the visuals on a TV, because they rob your mind of the opportunity to visualize in unique ways and to understand what's in the mind. A really good author puts things into the verbiage that bring things out in your mind that can't actually be duplicated on the video. And so I don't speed read a book like that. I read it for pleasure and allow my mind to kind of track with ideas and thoughts. And it's just one of the great things. I have a very large sci-fi collection, science fiction book collection and magazines. And it's one of my pleasures to read some of those books. In fact, Sir Isaac Asimov, most people don't know as Christians that he was perhaps the most prolific Christian writer of the last 100 years, while at the same time also being a prolific science fiction writer. He was also a historian and had written so many great books. So his understanding of faith, of the Christian faith, is actually hidden in his sci-fi books, morals and intents and desires from what he found through his understanding of the scriptures. Pretty amazing thing. But you can get things in your soul in reading a really great book that it doesn't pull it out of you in the same way. It doesn't get your imagination going in the same way just watching a movie or something like that. It's a different experience. It's one of my favorite things. So yeah, readers are leaders.
Yeah, that's why we are all kids by the side of the road with Melania on the cover. Mine is with Melania. Yes, in Brazil, it arrived in less than
fantastic.
In less than a month. You will sign it for me, Juan, as soon as possible.
I'll look forward to that. I'll look forward to it. You know,
Juan, I would love to have the same thing.
Yep. No, let's get you both a signed copy. In fact, after the broadcast, if you text me over an address, I'll see if I can have.
I would love that.
Juan,
a signed copy sent to both of you. So, by the way, in the early days, I charged nothing extra for postage for the Kid by the Side of the Road books that I sent all over the world. I sent thousands of copies to anybody that ordered it, and paid the extra postage, sometimes as much as $100 a copy, because I considered it that important to get the message out to various parts of the world. And then I finally had to cut off a certain point, but I enjoyed that because it was fun to get them out to people in different parts of the world and have them enjoy the book. And the logistics for mailing were almost prohibitive to charge for most people for that. So I considered it kind of administrative or talk about it, but that was something I did early on. We sent thousands and thousands to very far-flung places. I think we sent books at no extra charge over what I was charging here in the U.S. to, I think it was 96 countries total.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
so
awesome.
pretty fun. And it was thousands of copies. So anyway.
When's the storm coming?
Well, I've had the storm essentially ready to go for quite a while. There's stuff in the background that I had to hold. And we have been close to striking a couple different times. And I have some people that ordered early copies that I have to take care of first. And I've got something extra special for them that will make up for the delay. But for everybody else,
you're talking to one.
Well, there's some drama that took place in the background that I'm very upset about, but for various reasons, I allowed this to fester a bit on purpose. And there's stuff that even in the last week, there have been changes that I think released me to go ahead and send it to print. And I was just over talking to my print people on Monday, communicating with them about availability for print times. But it won't be a large print when I do it. It'll be a pretty exclusive print. And so.
Well, Juan, a more important question, not necessarily a more important question. It's great to know when the storm is coming, but when is the switch going to get flipped?
Well, the switch flipped in what sense? Lights out.
The financial system, the EBS, the. Let me ask you another question. The drops, the Intel drops told us if future proves past. The drops 7 or 8 years ago told us to expect an amazing Christmas. Might this be the Christmas season that drop was talking about?
It's cryptic for a reason. And the one thing I want people to keep in mind, you have a lot of checkpoints along the way. Much of what has to be done is still years out even now. Yeah. And so you have some things that are amazing and beautiful that will happen literally mere weeks from now, and other things which are still quite a ways out. That it's painful that it hasn't happened sooner, but as I have a editor that goes through and looks stuff, and he was commenting there a couple weeks ago. There's stuff that if I had put it out to the public, even though I have it ready, they wouldn't have a context to understand quite yet. And it might have looked, cutting edge and heady and all that, but it might not have actually been understood or interpreted properly. And so I think there's a timeliness there. And again, that's kind of a prayerful hand of God thing.
May I add something?
Yes.
To Rob's question. Rob, I can answer your question, okay? So Mariah Carey is releasing a new album September 26th, and she is the major hit for Christmas. And she sings All I Want for Christmas. So Papi is watching us, okay? And he knows we are looking for something. And most of all, we are going to sing, Juan, I don't know if you remember the lyrics. Jen and I, we remember. 2020.
It's not
Over yet.
Well, how about
I thought last Christmas was pretty good with XRP and Trump winning the election, but I'll take an even better one.
well, how about this? This is 𝕯𝖚𝖘 Trumpy showing it's about to start. He tweeted this about 3 hours ago.
I can see it coming in the air tonight.
You know what?
The real show is about to start.
Yeah.
𝕯𝖚𝖘.
You know, let me just tell you guys one thing, just in parting, last little thing.
Yeah.
That 2020 almost wiped me out. Yeah, I'll live. At the time that the In the Air Tonight song by Bill Collins came out, I was involved in some activity that went from Miami to South America, and had somebody that was betrayed us. Very similar to what happened in the TV show Miami Vice. It's very, very personal for me, and I think about it very, very frequently. And I put that song out a number of times over the last decade. I feel it more intensely now than ever. There's exposure, justice, some righteous moment that's just ahead. And it relates to justice being served. And specifically in the Russia stuff. That song is very personal for me. And I take it very seriously. It's coming. It's close.
Patrick Byrne. That's all I can say.
Yeah, Patrick's a great ally. By the way, he's there's very few people that I have enjoyed working with over the last few years more than Patrick, and we've done quite a bit of things together, as people know. And he will be remembered as an absolutely astounding, tremendous patriot. But with that, I think I'm out. I don't think I can. I think I used the last moments of my voice.
Yes.
As you're drowning in the waves of Hawaii.
Well, if I can get out in the water and get some salt water in my system, I probably could help preserve my voice, and then I can sing it, with more, resonance and fervor. 2020. It's not over yet.
Not over. 2016. 2016 is not over.
So, Juan, I want to thank you.
Juan.
I know everyone on the panel wants to thank you. Everyone that's listening wants to thank you, not only for this podcast, for everything you've done through this whole war so far. I know everyone on this panel, we've devoted our life to this war because it's important. It's really important.
It's a team effort, isn't it? Seriously.
It is.
What's going to be the most beautiful part about this?
Awesome.
No one person will get to be claiming credit as the superhero. Several have tried.
Except for God.
Christ, yes.
God.
From top to bottom, it's a move of God.
Amen.
Those that have chosen to be on the right side of history.
Yeah.
Small and great.
Preach it.
They have their place in the history books, and sometimes in God's economy, the person that was cleaning the floors, working 2 shifts a day to get the kid through law school so they could become a Supreme Court justice, may not be seen, but their level of greatness before God is unfathomable. We have lots of people who have labored intensely to assist and get us through this. And I feel it all the time myself, even through prayer, of protection. You don't think that Trump was saved merely because he was this important person. I believe that the prayers of the people were heard by God himself. That's where Trump came from.
With that being said, Juan, I just want to say this. For those that have Kid by the Side of the Road, read page 26 and 27. It's a very important part of the book. And then, Juan, if you could give us a quick prayer on our way out, and then we'll listen to Kate Smith sing God Bless America.
Oh, super. Yeah. And by the way, Jennifer over at thejennifermack.com, she has a special that she put up, and I have it over at gumroad.com too, all patriots at gumroad.com on my site. She has a special with the Japanese English edition, which there's only a few thousand copies that we had printed, that she cut the price down below what we were just selling the main book for, and then included several pages laminated so they'll last of some of the various things that you can do to go after the parasites, different types of parasites that are common to people and that are really ruining lives. I had some really great friends that Hulda Clark being one of them, that have gone to great lengths to explain how the parasitic loads are what's causing, most of the diseases out there that are being interpreted in others ways. It ultimately comes back to the root, which is parasitic loads in the body. And so you really benefit by going after the parasitic presence in our bodies. They're like the demons themselves. It's these demons attaching themselves to us, the devil himself. They're all parasites, to get right down to it, trying to suck the life out of us so they can survive. So she has that with the Japanese English edition. It's Japanese on one side of the page and English on the other. It's a limited edition, very fun book. And you got it on her site, and she put it at a 20% discount just to encourage people to get the parasite stuff. And I was like, I wasn't racing to sell those books. There's only a couple thousand of them. So anyway, if you want to get a good deal, that's there on her site or mine. With that said, let me say a prayer. Father God, I thank you for all these beautiful patriots, not just American patriots, but Canadian patriots, Brazilian patriots, Ecuadorian patriots, patriots of the kingdom of God, the governance of your kingdom, Father God in heaven, who seek to be agents of beauty, life, love, health, prosperity, so that those around them can live a rich, full life of meaning with all that they need to be about the work that you've put before each and every one of us. I thank you for the opportunity to work with such a great team of your people out across the world, and to be part of something amazing that you are doing, Father God, to bring life where there's death, health where there's great sickness, beauty where there's horrors. We ask that you would strengthen our hands, strengthen our legs and feet in order to be about doing the work that you've given us to help children, help those who are unable to help themselves through infirmity or age, to do the things that you would have us do according to your will, Father God, to be tools in your hand Give us the command, give us your provision, give us the direction, the wisdom, the insight, and the assistance of our compatriots to go out and do that which pleases you, Father God. That is a blessing of unmeasurable wealth, goodness of life. Allow us to be partakers with you and doing great things that live throughout eternity, where lives are saved, lives are turned away from evil, but to goodness, to righteousness, and that we would be blessed here in the earth that you gave us through our father Adam, through Christ by his blood, so that we may be about your works, Father God, according to your will. We pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Juan.
Very fun. I'll look forward to the next opportunity.
Please.
Give me a couple days to get my voice back, and then we'll have some dramas, and then we'll come back and we'll talk more about it.
That'd be awesome. I hope you'll stick around for Kate Smith. This is one of my favorite songs.
Oh, I love it. It's a great song.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
Juan.
All right.
Thank you, Juan.
All right.
Dylan, let's end with Kate Smith.
And now we take great pleasure in presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean. Goodbye, Daddy.
Bye, Dad. Don't be late.
No. White with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet
Right, Pop? Right, son.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain
Kind of makes you think of Blake, doesn't it? Makes you think of a lot of things. We're going to be in this yet, Mom.
Hello, son.
Hi, Mom. Hello, darling.
New song?
Brand new, first time of the year. Brand new, my eye. You know, I threw that song out of Yip Yip Yap Hank 22 years ago. Sounds better now.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to my panel. Thank you, Juan. And thank you to everyone who took the time to watch us tonight. And God bless America.
God bless.
And just want to add, we have all the links in the description for Juan, thejennifermack.com, my website, dsmp.io, the X of Qranker, X of Rob Cunningham, and this is also streaming on Anna Marin's YouTube channel as well, so subscribe everywhere down there, and don't forget to like and subscribe on the video. And once again, thank you to Juan and to Qranker for organizing this, and for Anna and everybody. So see you next time, New Templars.
New Templar.